Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel and welcome to my Omnibus series. I've got so many of these omnibuses that are going to come out so that you'll be able to listen to an hour's worth of stories, which I know you're going to love. You know, the thing is that telling stories is such a fine art, and it's something that was practiced hundreds of years ago when people didn't have the technology that we have today. And everyone would gather around the fire and listen to a wonderful story. And also, what is so wonderful about a story is that personally, I think it is the best way to go to sleep. Every night when I go to bed, I always listen to stories. And that's something that parents used to do with their children. It's something that they still do with their children. There's nothing better than a good story. And so I hope you're going to enjoy this series. And before we start, I just want to say, do subscribe to my channel because you don't want to miss out on anything. Because I'm in for the long haul and I want to make sure that you get the most stunning stories to go to bed with at night or to listen to when you want to be one of those people sitting beside the fire and listening. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and let's get started. I hope you're going to enjoy the omnibus.
Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, my head is a foggy blur. It's throbbing violently. I feel as if I'm heavily drugged with a sedative, or maybe locked under some kind of powerful anaesthetic perhaps, trying so desperately to come around from an operation or surgical procedure of some kind. But surely if I had had surgery, I would know about it. Not necessarily, comes a still voice in my head that is quick to answer my enigmatic question, leaving my mind clouded with yet more uncertainty. Where am I? What has happened to me? Are the two prominent questions ringing in my head like a loud, clamorous bell? I am rather familiar with this weird sensation because I've experienced it before, when I went under the surgeon's knife for a wrist operation 5 years prior. I vividly remember trying to awaken from the surgery, but I could not. I had a mighty struggle on my hands. I suspected the anaesthetist had given me way too much anaesthetic. It had knocked me out good and hard, almost as if the sedative I'd been given would have put a rhino out cold. I was only 110 pounds. I wondered, had the same thing happened to me all over again? Had I been given a walloping amount of anaesthetic that was weighing me down like heavy weights standing on a collection of books, pressing down a couple of wild flowers, crushed between the crisp white pages? I was like that tiny pressed flower, I suspected, unable to escape from my confinement. My mother informed me that following the surgery I'd undergone for my wrist procedure 5 years prior, that I had been delirious, disorientated, and very confused, as if I was disconnected to my reality, rather like an electric gadget not plugged into the mains. Apparently I'd been talking about how much I wanted to own a zebra, but I wasn't sure the African authorities would enable me to bring one through customs back to America. "Better than horses," I had said. "They've got nice black stripes." Apparently I went on and on about smuggling the zebra through customs from Africa, that apparently I wanted to own, and I've never ever been remotely partial to even riding horses, nor have I expressed any real interest in zebras before. So why would I ever want to own a zebra? That was beyond me. Was there another side of my personality that made itself known when I was out for the count? It would seem so. My mother told me that I was going to call the zebra Sharpie, like those Sharpie pens you get. I was talking incessantly about how to acquire the zebra. My mother had taken my hand in hers and given it an encouraging squeeze, while I lay there in my comatose state, fast asleep in the hospital bed, harpooned in my own little fanciful world, far away from our current reality. I began mumbling away about this zebra that I seemed determined to acquire. "Don't worry, Sharpie is on his way to you, love. He'll be here in America shortly. He's a fine-looking zebra, and the authorities have agreed to let him come through customs for you all the way from the continent of Africa. He's all yours," my mother said, So just relax, will you? When I came around from the surgery, as a joke, my mother, with her quirky sense of humour, could not resist buying me a stuffed zebra that I called Sharpie, who now stands pride of place on the mantel, an ever reminder to me to never go under the knife again, if I can possibly help it. For some reason it would appear that the cocktail of anaesthetics I was given did not appear to agree with my constitution, unless of course my anaesthetist, Dr. Dixon, had assumed I weighed 500 pounds instead of 110. My mother claimed to have overheard a couple of nurses whispering among themselves in the corridors after my surgery, and what she heard them say turned her blood cold. "I think Dr. Dixon gave her way too much anaesthetic, don't you? I could smell booze on his breath. That girl should have come around from the surgery, should she not? Unless she had some kind of adverse reaction to the sedatives. I'm worried because I think Dr. Dixon might have mistakenly given her enough anaesthetic to put out an ox," the other nurse had whispered. "Do you think she's going to be all right? She's a small little thing, is she not?" "She'll be fine," said the nurse, "but I need to have words with Dr. Dixon about this. This can't happen again." "Maybe it's not Dr. Dixon's fault," came the earnest reply. "We can't possibly point fingers at the man. We don't know what happened, and that would not be fair. He is a great anaesthetist. Maybe the girl's the problem, the patient, I mean. We're all different to how we react to things, don't you think? Maybe Dr. Dixon gave her the right amount of sedatives. He's an excellent anaesthetist. I know he is. Great reputation he has. Everybody knows that." "I suppose you're right," came the stiff reply. "But I'm still going to keep my eyes pinned on the man. I'm convinced it was alcohol on his breath, you know. But then again, it could have been mouthwash. They do say that some mouthwashes are very alcoholic. And let's not kid. Dr. Dixon's teeth are so white, I wouldn't be surprised if he gargled in bleach." "Well, that is true. Some mouthwashes do smell alcoholic. You're probably right. The girl just had a bad reaction to the anaesthetic. I mean, let's not kid. Dr. Dixon is highly professional and highly regarded. The poor girl is just struggling to come round, that's all. And all this talk about owning a zebra. It's absolutely hilarious." My mother was mortified when she overheard this conversation, and was pondering what to do about some random comments made by a couple of nurses that left her feeling rather disquieted. But when she returned to the hospital ward, to her relief, I was sitting up in my hospital bed, looking as if I was heavily drugged, but nevertheless aware of my surroundings, so I had returned to the land of the living. My mother soon forgot her worries. When I came around from my surgery, and was as right as rain again, I did remain rather dopey for the next 24 hours, where I continued talking a whole bunch of nonsense. Whether I had experienced a bad reaction to the anaesthetic, or whether I had been given too much anaesthesia, I may never know the answer to that question. One thing was for sure, I never wanted to be put out like that again, to become so powerless and at the mercy of the surgeon. I knew when I got older in the future, I would run away from all cosmetic surgery. I know that celebrities run after it, because they see it as the elixir of youth. But not me. No, thank you very much. Never me. When push comes to shove, I would rather age gracefully than put my reliance on a cosmetic procedure to wipe away the years that may subject me to unnecessary risk that I just would not want to take. Right now, I'm fully aware that something has happened to me. But what? That is the burning question that is hovering up in the sky of my mind like an eagle in full flight. The familiar experience is unpleasant. It's like Groundhog Day being repeated all over again, as if I'd been put under the knife again for a second wrist procedure. But I know that makes no sense at all. My aching head feels as thick as syrup. I do not recall having been taken into surgery, unless, of course, I was involved in a fortuitous accident of some kind. That must be it. I've definitely been in an accident of some sort. It would be the only thing to explain this weird foggy sensation that is keeping me suspended tightly in this blurred parallel universe that I can't seem to escape. It is so claustrophobic, cruelly hemming me in from every side. I feel like an insect entangled in a spider's web, and the more I struggle to break free from the silken fibres of those threads, the more ensnared I become. All I want to do is to scream as loud as I possibly can, so that someone can help me overcome the shackles of my internal prison that I am subjugated to. I might as well be locked up in a padded prison cell. That is how hopelessly alone I feel. I just can't seem to get anybody's attention, no matter how hard I try. I even try to flicker my eyelashes, to twitch my nose, but nothing moves. Not even a finger, not even my feet. It's as if I'm completely trapped in my own body. My throat is dry and scratchy, and even when I want to say something, nothing comes out of my mouth, other than a faint, rather annoying mumble that I'm sure is barely coherent. If there are any nurses around at the minute, would they even hear my strangled gasps or my feeble attempts at communication? I don't think so. My body is stubbornly refusing to cooperate with my mind, as if it's playing truant. I must be in a coma. That's it. Either that or I'm definitely dead, for I'm trapped in a dark, empty void. I can sense my surroundings, though, but it's a thick, clawing, insufferable heaviness that is pulling me right under, like the waves of the ocean, dragging me beneath them, as I struggle with all my might and all my strength to get to the surface again, so that I can breathe that life-giving oxygen. The feeling is like that, holding me down with such a brute force. I feel absolutely convinced I've got to be in a hospital. There can be no other explanation. Was I in a car crash or something, I wonder? I had experienced a few near misses before, on the roads here in Seattle's commuter traffic, when you always get the one outrageously impertinent driver on the road that is willing to take perilous risks, as if that little bit of extra speed will ensure they get to their required destination a tiny bit faster. Never mind, they might end up not getting home at all, if they drive recklessly enough. But some people don't think about long-term consequences of their impatience, do they? And I've never been able to comprehend why. Me personally, I'd like to arrive at my destination alive, thank you very much. If I did happen to have a car accident, then I have no memory of such an inauspicious event. But that would be normal, wouldn't it, to lose your memory like this, as victims of road accidents barely remember the experience at all, as if their memory has been purposely wiped out and blanked. Maybe it's the body's internal protective mechanism that comes into play here, that enables us to heal faster, so we don't end up with post-traumatic stress disorder. For indeed, if we remembered all the gruesome, horrific details of an accident, maybe we'd be far too afraid to get behind the wheel of our car again, to get back on our dirt bike, onto the surfing board, or a horse perhaps. In my case, I have no recollection whatsoever of the last 24 hours of my life, whether I took a drive in my white Hyundai or not. I try to consider this in my seemingly drug-induced state. If I'd gone out in the car on a weeknight, it would have been likely for me to pick up some groceries from the late-night 24-hour store, as I'm always needing to buy a light snack for my evening meal, as I'm not always keen to cook when I return home after a day's work. That could be a distinct possibility, but my memory eludes me, like a balloon on the wind, that I simply cannot grasp, no matter how hard I try. I know who I am. Thank goodness for that. I haven't forgotten such vital information. My name is June Amelia Jones. Yes, that's right. My name is definitely June. I live in a beautiful Seattle apartment. It overlooks the Space Needle. It was a dream of mine to live in a luxurious apartment like this. Recently I got a promotion at work to the illustrious position of office manager, which might not sound very impressive, but it actually is a promotional leap for me. I work at a company called Centerfile. My office is a stone's throw away from where I live. I am in charge of quite a large team of dynamic people with ingenious ideas that make the business very successful. I do enjoy the responsibilities and challenges that my job presents. My parents' names are Mr. and Mrs. Jones, They both live in Spokane, Washington, where I grew up as a little girl. I feel relieved that I do remember these intrinsic details of my life, which is a promising start. But what happened over the last 24 hours, I cannot for the life of me figure out, and it makes me feel terribly on edge. Why is it that I seem incapable of breaking through to our reality? I feel as good as dead right now, and the thought of this makes me feel very unhinged. Supposing I am dead, but then I become so aware of my breathing. No, I'm not dead, and knowing that brings me a small measure of comfort. But why can I not wake up? It's like I'm on the edge of a stream and have to jump over the stones to get to the other side. But I keep slipping, falling, losing my balance, so that reaching the other side seems impossible. The last time I had surgery, as I was saying, was over 5 years ago, when I broke my wrist after I fell backwards on some unsuspecting black ice on the pavement. I landed directly on my wrist with all my body weight, in an ungainly fall, on a street populated with many pedestrians. I was going to pick up some doughnuts for my work colleagues for our tea break, and I had no idea that there were icy patches on the pavement. It had been freezing ice-cold weather in Seattle. Everybody had been complaining about it, and there had been a huge increase of road traffic accidents due to what can only be described as invisible black ice on the roads, which is so treacherous, especially when you don't see it coming. I do recall my wrist was dangling off my hand so precariously. It looked gruesome, as if I was the owner of a gnarled claw. I remember a group of pedestrians rushing towards me to help me. One woman stared at me in abject horror. I thought she was going to faint at the very sight of my arm. She was saying in a raspy, disjointed voice, "My God! Look at her hand! Look at her hand!" "What happened?" people were asking me. One woman said, "She fell right over. I saw her just stumble backwards." One man resolved the problem. "There's a whole lot of black ice around here. Everyone, you must watch your footing. We need to get some salt down here before someone else falls over. Never seen it like this before, on the pavement of all things. So much black ice, it's all over the place. This is a hell of a dangerous." These kind, very generous people helped me up to my feet, and one of my office colleagues came to my rescue, assuring the well-meaning pedestrians that I was now in her charge. She would deal with my immediate needs and take me straight to the hospital. Needless to say, my hand was a hideous sight, that even the doctor shuddered in horror when he saw what I'd done to myself. But he assured me very politely he'd seen a lot worse. I'm sure it's true. I do suspect medical personnel have seen some horrendous sights in the hospital over the years, things you cannot unsee, and many of those emergencies would likely make my broken wrist seem very benign and insignificant. I recall the excruciating pain I experienced following my fall on the ice. It shot through me like a series of shooting stars, but in this case there was no beauty or awesome wonder involved. I was taken to the A&E in the UW Medical Center Montlake in Pacific Street, where under a mild anesthetic, the doctor on duty and a couple of nurses at his side slipped my wrist back into place as best as they could, so that at least my hand looked halfway decent. It would seem a day or so later, I went into surgery, where Dr. Russell Mendoza, my orthopedic surgeon, put a metal rod in my wrist, which I still have today, although I was told it might be a good idea to remove it once my wrist was fully healed. But I never went back to undergo another surgery again. I have an impassioned hatred for all things medical, and after the anaesthetist, Dr. Dixon, had put me out, I knew I never wanted to have an anesthetic again. I recall feeling as if I'd never wake up, like a desperate seal trapped under the ice, searching for that life-giving air hole, and wondering if he was ever going to find it. Right now, I have this profound, instinctive sense that I've got to be in a hospital bed. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. It's the only thing that explains my banging headache, the feeling of being plunged beneath huge volumes of sedative. Beyond that, another telltale sign is that my body is in absolute agony. I'm aching all over, as if I'd been pushed through a liquidizer, like the bananas in a smoothie. Everything is aching. Everything is hurting. I half expect a nurse to be standing over my bed, putting a gentle hand on me to reassure me, to tell me that I'm in hospital recovering from major surgery, as my spleen got ruptured in a car accident, or something like that, and that I'm doing very well and will make a speedy recovery. I want to hear those words more than anything else in the world, so that I can find my bearings in this labyrinth of confusion in which I find myself regretfully immersed. I try to discern whether I can wiggle my toes and fingers, and inwardly sigh with relief to realize they are still there, even if I don't seem to be able to move them. At least I'm in one piece, with all my appendages appearing to be together, so I'm not going to be informed that I'm missing a leg or something when I finally come around from this paradoxical delirium. I'm trying to see if I can remember what has happened to me, and I'm so frustrated because I just can't. Why can't I remember anything? My memory is stubbornly uncooperative. It's doggedly refusing to give me any insight as to my current whereabouts, or what actually happened to me to bring me here in the first place. It is almost as if the last few hours of my life have been expunged and wiped away, like the raindrops on a windscreen window, to be remembered no more. I fight to come around from my comatose state, as if I'm wrestling a formidable opponent in a boxing ring, with very little success. Maybe I had a nasty fall, sustained a blow to my head. But if that is the case, why can't I remember anything? Why can I not remember a thing? If I'm in hospital, why can't I smell antiseptic smells that you acquaint with hospitals? Why can I not hear the scuttle of nurses' feet, the background chatter of people, or even the comforting sounds of my mother's voice telling me that I'm in good hands and I'm going to be just fine? I hear none of that. I am so overwhelmed with frustration, being caught in the heavy oblivion that blankets me from the world I know so well, like an office partition that is made of a thick clawing white mist that separates me from my current reality. Why can't I break through it all? Open your eyes, June, I keep telling myself over and over again. Then you will know exactly where you are. Then you will have the answers to the questions you're looking for. Go on, wake up, June. For goodness sake, wake up. A little voice in my head urges me to do just that. The voice is earnest and demanding. I try to obey it, I really do. But my drooping eyelids are so incredibly heavy, so stiff, so unyielding, almost as if they're made of a hardened cement. Finally, after much struggle, my eyes break open, like a fly ingeniously escaping the tiny hole in a trap. But when I open my eyes and sit up with a start, I realize to my horror that I'm not in a hospital bed. But where am I? 4 months earlier, I was incredibly happy to have moved into my Seattle apartment, overlooking the Space Needle. In the beginning, I didn't think I'd be able to afford to rent such a prime piece of real estate, although I had dreamed about this luxury often enough and talked about it with my mother on many occasions. My mother was one of the most positive people you could ever hope to meet, the kind of person who believed nothing was impossible if you put your mind to it. It was hardly a wonder that by profession she was a wellness coach and a trauma counsellor, helping people to fix up the mess of their broken lives. People who were addicted to food that they had no motivation to make any positive changes to their diet and lifestyle, and if they didn't do so fast, they might end up becoming a slave to their obesity, where food dictated the course of their lives. Others who were too afraid to leave their own homes because of a crippling, paralysing, irrational fear that meant the walls of their own home had inadvertently become a prison to them. My mother had seen it all, worked with all kinds of colourful people from all walks of life, helping them to overcome and deal with their own personal demons, so that the mental shackles that had held them back for so long would have been loosed. She would always say, "I cannot help these people if they don't help themselves first." In my mother's office, she had hundreds of letters from people who said that she had changed their lives. "Mrs. Jones," the letters would say, I don't know how to thank you. You set me free from my alcohol addiction. Thanks to you, I'm living my true authentic life, and I've been sober for many years now. I give you credit for my accomplishments, for without your intervention, I could be lying in a ditch somewhere, half cut, or worse still, dead. Thank you for giving me my life back. My mother would say, true happiness has got nothing to do with what you materially own, believe it or not, or how well off you are financially. Many people believe that. Of course it helps. It helps a great deal. But happiness is a peaceful mindset, and once you've accomplished that, you will be very content with your life. As my mother's daughter, her words of encouragement were so convincing that I believed them myself. My mother was so positive that if she told me I was living in the 6th century AD, I'd have probably believed her. So when she informed me one day that I would definitely own my dream apartment overlooking the Space Needle, I didn't doubt it for a second. My mother had been proved right about so many things over the course of her life, and her positivity was always infectious. I knew that an opportunity to own a luxurious apartment like that would not present itself unless I received a promotion at work, and I didn't see that coming my way in a hurry. But once again my mother persuaded me that a promotion for me was around the very next corner. I just had to believe in that possibility, and then it would happen. Sweetheart, my mother would say, you can get that dream apartment of yours overlooking the Space Needle. It's not impossible. But you do need to get that promotion at work first. And the problem is you have to believe in yourself. If you doubt yourself, then I can guarantee you it will not happen for you. You always get what you expect in life, not necessarily what you want or deserve. But how can I get a promotion? I said in a cantankerous grumble. Chance would be a fine thing. Mr. Bridges barely notices me. He never gives me a second glance. You have no idea what Mr. Bridges is like, Mum. No idea at all. He watches over us like a shark over a school of sardines. The mind boggles as to how many people he's sacked in recent years. He's ruthless, Mum. You put one foot wrong, I promise you, and you'll be out on a limb. Sometimes I feel as if I'm walking on eggshells at work, waiting to be called in to Mr. Bridges' office, to be given my calling cards. And then it's over cadovers for me, I said miserably. My mother reflected over my words rather soberly. Surely he's not that bad, love. Aren't you being a bit dramatic? I'm quite sure your biggest problem is your perception of the man. I'll have you know that perception can be a very poor barometer of the truth. It can be hazardously misleading. You need to try and see things at your workplace through Mr. Bridges' eyes, so you can comprehend why he reacts in the way he does towards some of the staff in his employ. You must remember it is in his interest to have people working for him, delivering their very best on the job. I mean, think about it. When you had your wrist surgery, you wouldn't have wanted someone incompetent fixing you up, would you? High standards are incredibly important in the workplace, and inefficient employees might make Mr. Bridges himself look incompetent. Have you thought about that? I get what you're saying, Mum, and yes, it does make loads of sense. But I still emphatically believe that I will never understand Mr. Bridges. How can I understand a man like that? He's unreasonable, that's all I can say. Over the years, he's let go of some really great people, as far as I'm concerned, for no good reason at all. We're human beings, Mum. We make mistakes. But no, Mr. Bridges expects us to behave like robots, to do everything perfectly. Sometimes, love, people cannot afford to make mistakes. For example, there are honey seekers in the Himalayas, going after a honey that actually makes people hallucinate. It's a very powerful elixir, and it's a honey that is sold all over the world in places like Japan, where they find it for medicinal uses. But these honey hunters have to go up these tiny rope ladders to great heights on these huge cliff faces to find that wild honey. And if they lose their footing on these tiny little rope ladders that swing all over the place, then they will fall to their deaths. So they cannot afford to make a mistake. And do you know what, love? They know that they won't. They have that much faith in themselves. Let me tell you something for nothing. No one sacks a person for no good reason. Surely you must have a good idea as to why Mr. Bridges has let go of these people. I don't think it's as black and white as you seem to assume. I thought about my mother's words long and hard. Well, I think he lets people go for poor timekeeping, sloppy work, that kind of thing. Actually, the sloppy work is a biggie with him. He can't stand that. It's his pet peeve. He's got zero tolerance for that. Go on, said my mother. Give me an example so I can get a better understanding of Mr. Bridges. I shrugged my shoulders nonchalantly. Well, I do remember there was a girl working at the offices called Liz. I forget what her surname was. She was with us so fleetingly, and then she was gone. She wrote up a report for him, with hundreds of spelling mistakes and poor grammar. It was so bad that Mr. Bridges came into the office and threw the report at poor Liz. It fell onto the floor with a loud thump, missing her by mere inches. Everyone in the office practically jumped out of their skin. They were startled. I've never seen Mr. Bridges look so angry. It was like his thin body was jiggling with indignation. His face was as red as a field of poppies. "What do you call this, Liz?" he bellowed. "I can't believe you present such shoddy work to me. This is completely unacceptable and inexcusable. I'm appalled by your low standards of presentation. There is no excuse for this, with the computer technology we have accessible to us today. You would think at the very least you would have done a spell check, but no, you were too lazy to do that. Those are basic requirements. If it's not bad enough, your grammar is atrocious, Liz. There is no excuse for these reprehensible mistakes. You should be ashamed of yourself. Do you have no pride in the quality of the work you produce? Get your things now and go. You're fired." "Mr. Bridges, I'm really sorry," Liz had said in a pleading voice. "I really need this job. I really need it. Please don't fire me. I'll do better next time, I promise. I've just had a few rough days, that's all." Mr. Bridges raised his hand.
"I don't want to hear your pitiful excuses. There will be no next time, I'm afraid, Liz. We all have rough days in our lives, but we have to rise above them, don't we? I don't give second chances to lazy people. Get your things and go."
Poor Liz just grabbed a box, packed her things inside it, walked away with her tail between her legs. Everyone felt desperately sorry for her, as you can imagine, but no one said anything, unless they ended up having their job axed as well. Mr. Bridges is ruthless, Mum. I'm telling you, ruthless.
"That is very interesting, June," said my mother reflectively, as she tried to figure out Mr. Bridges, as if she was a scientist, putting him under a glass slide and studying him under a microscope to give me her findings. "It sounds to me as if Mr. Bridges is a perfectionist. Nothing rubs him up the wrong way more than a report that lacks finesse and is badly put together. As for all the spelling mistakes and bad grammar that Liz made, that was the writing on the wall for the young lady." "Well, there you go," said my mother triumphantly, slapping her hands together with a finality that suggested she had all the answers for me. "When you're dealing with a perfectionist like Mr. Bridges, you need to make everything you present to the man be as perfect as possible. Then he will single you out for favour, and before you know it, you will get that promotion you've been longing for." "You make it sound so easy, Mum. It's not as straightforward as that. Mr. Bridges is impossible to please. There are loads of people working in those offices with me. I'm one among many. The man barely notices me. The only time I had any real personal contact with him was when I came to an interview with him at Centerfile. I was shaking in my boots because even back then I could sense he was a hard taskmaster with exacting, punctilious standards. In truth, I'm rather surprised I got the job at all. I don't think the man notices I exist. or anybody else for that matter, apart from a few favourites. As to why he employed me in the first place, God only knows. I hardly think he sees me as an asset to the team. You sound like the perennial pessimist, love. That's not going to get you very far. If you say Mr. Bridges doesn't notice you, because there are so many of you working for him, like a team of carpenter ants, that all look the same, then you need to stand out from the crowd so that he does notice you. Make sure you produce excellent quality work with no mistakes. There is no such word as impossible. I've told you that all your life, and you know it's true.
What you don't get, Mum, is that some of the people that work at Centrefile, some of my work colleagues, are absolutely brilliant, very talented, and I'm sure they shine a lot brighter than I do. A lot of them are cleverer than I am. If a promotion is ever in the pipeline, it'll be likely given to one of them, not me. My mother waved her elegant white hand in the air, in a swatting gesture, as if she was shooing away an annoying fly.
Honestly, love, listen to yourself. You do only half talk some nonsense. If you can continue talking like this, then you will not get that promotion. You need to change very quickly. That shoddy mindset of yours will do you no favours. You'll be in the same job you're doing now in 10 years' time, if that's the case. You need to get your act together, to sharpen up, love, and quit feeling sorry for yourself and adapting such a defeatist mentality. I didn't raise you to be a shrinking violet. Now, for God's sake, stand up for yourself and make sure you shine in that workplace, like the brightest star in the heavens. Can you do that for me?
I'll try my level best, Mum, I said begrudgingly, but I can assure you it's not going to be easy.
Nothing you desire comes easily, love. That's the whole point.
One day as I was sitting at my computer in the offices, Lee Brondell, one of my work colleagues, tapped me with an urgent gentleness on the shoulders. She looked a little disquieted. Her face was drained of all its colour. She looked apologetic when she said to me, in a low whisper, "Mr. Bridges wants to see you in his offices right now. He says it's important." I looked up at Lee from my computer, with eyes growing wider and wider, and more horrified by the second. My stomach twisted into knots. My heart began to punnel furiously against my ribcage like a bird that wanted to escape. If Mr. Bridges wanted to see me now, it was not good news. Everyone knew what that meant. I had done something so dreadful in his opinion that I needed to be thrown out with the dirty bathwater. One thing is for certain. Mr. Bridges had spat out his venom at me. I would lightly leave the offices at Centrefile, like a shadow of my former self, feeling the full indignity and disgrace of my humiliation. Everyone in the office gave me sympathetic but knowing looks. They knew as much as I did about my impending fate. It was almost written in stone for me. A few people wished me good luck. No doubt they thought I was about to be given the snip. Everything went very quiet in the offices. Lee Brondell grabbed me by the hand and gave it an encouraging squeeze. "I'm so sorry, June, so sorry," she whispered, her eyes dropping to the floor to avoid meeting my gaze. Lee Brondell really liked me, and I knew she would be sad if I was to be let go of. "Don't let Mr. Bridges eat you alive," she whispered. "Keep it together, June. Don't break down in tears in front of Mr. Bridges. That's if he gives you your calling cards. Whatever he has to say to you, take it in your stride with dignity. And even if you do have to leave Centrefile for good, make sure you walk away with your head held high. You've done nothing wrong, so don't you dare scurry away like a frightened mouse, like the last girl did. Mr. Bridges can be very domineering, but don't let that man get you down. Understand? You know your worth, girl, even if Mr. Bridges foolishly fails to see it." I nodded. "Thanks for the good advice. I'll do my best," I said in a squeaky voice that I wasn't sure was even my own. I drew in a deep breath to calm down my nerves. Why was I surprised? I knew in my gut this day would finally come, but at this precise moment it was all far too soon for me. With knees crumbling beneath me, I dragged my reluctant, uncooperative legs all the way to Mr. Bridges' office. as if conducting a long walk of shame from death row prison to the executioner's chamber. I was trembling in my boots, terrified about what awaited me on the other side of the door. There was an ornate gold-embossed sign on the outside of the walnut door, which read Senior Director and CEO, Mr. Bridges. I gingerly knocked on the door, and I heard Mr. Bridges' booming voice telling me to come in. "Come in if that's you, Miss Jones. You are welcome to come in right now." I reluctantly pushed the door open, peering nervously around the corner, wishing with my whole heart that the ground would swallow me whole. But Mr. Bridges beckoned to me with a wave of his hand. I knew why I was here. Of course I did. I had failed exponentially to present the recent report to Mr. Bridges on time, but it had been so much hard work, and my mother's advice had burned into me. Don't present anything inferior or wishy-washy to the man. Make sure that everything you produce for him is absolutely meticulous, and if you do that, you won't go wrong. I had wanted to get it exactly right. I didn't want to present anything to Mr. Bridges that was less than absolutely perfect, as I believed that my mother's evaluation of the man was absolutely spot on. So my report, that had been very fastidious, had taken longer than I had anticipated. I understood that Mr. Bridges had not been best pleased with the delay of my report. Beyond all that, I had unfortunately arrived late to work 4 times in the last week, when my alarm clock had failed to go off in time, which I had since replaced, for fear that my job at Centerfile would become all but a whisper on the wind. Now it looked like it was becoming just that. I was absolutely certain that Mr. Bridges would be fully aware of my poor timekeeping. I knew he checked up on all of us, and the times we arrived at work. Late timekeeping was another one of his pet peeves. He would say there was no excuse for it. I suspected that this was the reason that Mr. Bridges was about to give me the sack today. Why did he have to be so doggedly unreasonable? Was there really no humanity in the man? I would be too proud to beg him to give me another chance, as Liz had done. Mr. Bridges had no mercy. I had been working at Centerfile for 5 years now, and made some jolly good friends on the job. But there wasn't anyone at work that was not intimidated by Mr. Bridges, as he wasn't known as the Bloodhound for nothing. Mr. Bridges ran a tight ship, and you were literally thrown overboard if you didn't deliver on the job. Everybody knew that. The punctilious man had zero tolerance towards any listless, work-shy people who had an inclination for slothful laziness or were shiftlessly sluggish about getting anything done in time. Since I'd started working at Centerfile, I had been giving my all, but maybe that wasn't enough. My late report that I'd handed in a day later might have just been the beginning of the end for me. Perhaps Mr. Bridges had decided that enough was enough. Was I surprised? Absolutely not. I think I had foreseen this happening, even though I'd tried to take my mother's salient advice to heart, and to shine like a pearl among all the employees at Centerfile. But by the looks of things, I had failed to get noticed by Mr. Bridges. Maybe I had got noticed, but not in the good way that I'd hoped. Mr. Bridges looked rather like a high school nerd, with thick black framed glasses that made his reflectant eyes appear absolutely huge. He was rail thin, reasonably tall, well over 6 foot, but he was one of the most formidable people that I'd ever had the pleasure to meet. He was ruthlessly unforgiving towards anyone who slacked on the job. He was always immaculately turned out, in pristine tailor-made suits, and he would wear a selection of very colourful ties that were an antithesis to his rather dull, dreary personality. Well, that's what I thought at the time. My heart was fluttering wildly in my chest like a frightened pigeon as he beckoned for me to take a seat on what appeared to be a grandiose-looking British racing green leather swivel chair. I had never been into Mr. Bridges's offices before. Well, that's not exactly true. I had been interviewed for a job here at Centerfile in his office, but since that rather nerve-wracking ordeal, I had failed to remember how opulent his office was, which only served to accentuate to me the obvious importance of this man. The masterfully engineered futuristic tower block I worked in was a huge modern development with cutting-edge innovative designs that had possibly cost millions of dollars to procure. Mr. Bridges' contemporary office boasted floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a busy street. His office was on the 75th floor, so the view was panoramic to say the very least, and the pedestrians walking along the street below looked like tiny little ants. Mr. Bridges must have loved the colour green, and an interior designer had cast her resplendent magic wand all over the place to make everything coordinate superbly. The green walls were covered with all his credentials, which alone were intimidating. Mr. Bridges may have looked like the quintessential school nerd. He'd have likely been bullied for wearing those thick-bottled glasses and being as skinny as a string bean. But he had more degrees behind him than some people have enjoyed hot dinners, and that in itself was unnerving. All I could think about was what it would ultimately mean for me if I lost my job. The idea was giving me hot flushes, as if I'd slipped into the menopause at 30 years of age. I could feel my cheeks burning. The thought of losing my job was too dreadful to contemplate. It would mean I'd have to go back to live with my parents in Spokane and find a local job working at Amy's with all the donuts there. That really would be a fall from grace. But Mr. Bridges would be unlikely to give me a good reference. It was competitive out there in the professional marketplace, and you were only as good as your last reference. Mr. Bridges eyed me through his thick-rimmed dark glasses, that, as I was saying, made his eyes appear enormously big, which for me was even more daunting. He said to me, "Do you know why I requested to see you, Miss Jones?" My heart was doing pirouettes in my chest. I was twisting my clammy fingers together nervously in order to calm myself down. But I looked up at Mr. Bridges to meet his steely gaze. If Mr. Bridges was going to give me the sack today, at the very least I would walk away with dignity. I would even leave with saying something like, "I'm sorry you feel disappointed in me, Mr. Bridges, but you have lost a valuable member of your staff, and I think you will regret having fired me." He could put that in his pipe and smoke it. See how he liked that. I would be the one to have the last word, not like the other people that had looked so sheepish and bashful as they crawled away from the officers, wearing shame all over their faces, as if they believed they had deserved the sack. That would not be me. Yes, it would be gut-wrenching and soul-destroying, having to put all the stuff that's in my desk into a cardboard box, and just saying goodbye to all my friends, while taking the walk of shame down the corridors, down the lift, through the offices. But then again I would hold my head up high, no matter what. "The report, Mr. Bridges. Is that why you wanted to see me?" I asked lamely. "How did you know, Miss Jones, that I wanted to see you about your report? You are right about that. It seems you are as sharp as you are perceptive and discerning. I was incredibly impressed with the presentation of your report. It was professional, methodical, and meticulous, just the way I like it. I was taken aback by your high standards, Miss Jones," he said, raising a bushy brow that seriously needed a good trim. I almost wished I could lean over the desk and snip away the stray hairs from his eyebrows, but I resisted the temptation. "To be brutally honest with you, Miss Jones, I had very low expectations when you came into my employ. I did not expect such eloquence from you. When you first arrived here to work at Centerfile, I thought you would be one of those ditzy people, likely to disappoint me. But for once I'm glad to say I was proved wrong. It goes to show never judge a book by its cover," he said with an amused laugh. "I've actually read some dog-eared books in my time, you know, that were masterpieces, and I wouldn't have believed that for a single moment." "What do you mean?" I asked churlishly, feeling slightly offended that anyone would look at me like a dog-eared book. I always arrived at work looking professional, wearing black trousers, jackets, and smart shirts. I always looked the part, but obviously Mr. Bridges did not think so. He was describing me in a less than complimentary way. "Please don't take offence, Miss Jones. You're a small little wispy thing, are you not? I thought you would be a little flaky, that's all. Head in the clouds sort of thing.
The kind of young lady too concerned over her makeup than focusing on the job at hand. I'm delighted to say that I have been proved wrong. Believe it or not, Miss Jones, whatever you may think of me, I do enjoy being proved wrong. It makes for a pleasant surprise, as normally I'm right on the money about everything, especially my assessment of people. But not with you, Miss Jones. Not with you. You are like that lovely surprise you never saw coming, which is very refreshing indeed. I would go so far as to say among my employees, you are the one that stands out to me. I know how a lot of the staff view me, Miss Jones. I'm very aware of that. They don't view me very kindly. Believe me, I know I'm ruthless, but I'm not as bad as people think. I still have a heart, you know, and a great sense of humour, even if I say so myself. But it is very important for me that people give of their best in their jobs, and when they don't, I can become very aggrieved for good reason. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
You're saying I stand out to you, Mr. Bridges? I said, looking at him aghast. I'd expected this rendezvous with him to go pear-shaped. The man was complimenting me. This was a first. I truly thought as if I was going to pass out from the shock of this unlikely conversation.
You do stand out to me, Miss Jones, I'm very glad to say,
said Mr. Bridges. He began fingering my report that I had presented to him in a purple file. A big smile grew on his face. I was surprised to see the man had a perfect set of pearly whites that were definitely all his own. I don't think I'd ever seen Mr. Bridges smile before. The smile lit up his entire face, and suddenly he didn't seem so intimidating any more. I found myself returning his smile, and mine was so big that for days afterwards my zygomatic muscles still ached from the torture of that smile.
Well done, Miss Jones. I am very impressed with you. Yes, your report may have been a day late, but this is quickly forgiven when I see the amount of work, effort and dedication you put into the report. I was in awe of your professionalism, and there was not one mistake in the entire report. Not one.
No mistakes? No mistakes at all? I asked, confounded.
No mistakes at all, Miss Jones. You should be very proud of yourself on that one. You're a fine example, Miss Jones, of the standards of high delivery I expect in the workplace. You will be a great role model to the people under my charge.
All I could do was gape at Mr. Bridges, my mouth opening and closing like a startled goldfish, but I said nothing. Mr. Bridges slowly took off his glasses so that I could see his green eyes more clearly. I was surprised how attractive his eyes were, as the glasses he wore really did him no favours.
Miss Jones, there is another reason I've called you into my offices today. It was not only because of your outstanding report, although that was one of the reasons, but I had another ulterior motive. I do not know if you are aware that Julia Napier is leaving Centerfile. She gave me her notice a month ago. She has been a huge asset to our company, with her prompt efficiency, her ingenious ideas, and outstanding presentation and delivery of all her reports. She was a remarkable office manager, reporting to me in person. I've called you in today, Miss Jones, as I would like to offer you her job. I believe you are the one in the office that has the ability to fill her big shoes. What do you say, Miss Jones?
You're giving me the office manager's job? I asked in astoundment, unable to believe I was hearing right. In truth, I felt as if I was going to faint from the shock. This was the last thing I expected to hear.
That is right, Miss Jones. It is very good news for you, because you will be reporting directly to me. And I need not remind you that the pay you will receive will be substantial. It is to meet the demands of the job, because here at Centerfile, I believe emphatically in rewarding my staff by paying very well. What do you say, Miss Jones?
I'm lost for words, Mr. Bridges. I'm lost for words. I truly don't know what to say. I'm in shock. I didn't expect this.
Mr. Bridges gave me a warm smile. Yes is an easier answer than any, Miss Jones.
Yes, of course I'll accept the job, Mr. Bridges. Thank you so much.
Don't thank me, Miss Jones. You have earned this job on your own merits. Congratulations. From tomorrow you will be reporting directly to me. And I need you to work with Mrs. Napier, so she can show you the ropes. Is that understood?
Yes, Mr. Bridges. Thank you, Mr. Bridges. I couldn't believe I'd been selected to be the new office manager. I was thrilled at the opportunity the job presented for me. But no one could believe my good news when I emerged from my rendezvous with Mr. Bridges. With a huge smile on my face, I cheekily said to my office colleagues, in an unbridled new confidence, "Meet your new office manager," to which everyone cheered and applauded and clapped their hands. When I phoned my mother to tell her of my accomplishments, she informed me that she was not remotely surprised.
"What did I tell you, love? I knew you could do it. So now you've had a much-deserved upgrade. I do hope you're going to get that luxurious apartment overlooking the Space Needle that you've been wanting so much. Grab the bull by the horns and do it now, love. Don't delay."
I didn't need much encouragement. I was happy to leave my nondescript apartment behind and give my notice of rent to my landlord. My old apartment was situated above a deli in Capitol Hill. I met the real estate agent for the block of apartments I'd been dreaming about renting for a very long time. The agent's name was Mrs. Jenna Armstrong, a blonde svelte woman who was tall like a giraffe. She wore smart bell-bottomed white pants and a matching jacket, with a blue and white scarf that was coiled around her swan-like neck. Everything about this woman was long and lean.
"Hello," she said,
in a chirpy professionalism, taking my hand in hers and squeezing it so tightly that I winced in pain. Was this big woman aware of her own strength? Probably not.
"Pleased to meet you. You must be Miss Jones," she said, looking down at me,
as if I was a tiny little thing. But then again, everybody would be small in this woman's presence, with very little difficulty, I might add.
"Well, Miss Jones, I'm delighted to show you around this exclusive apartment today, with its exquisite views over the Space Needle. I'm sure you will agree about that. You can see it's situated in a beautiful street, with lots of mature trees swaddling the pavement. The rental costs might appear expensive, but where do you get views so panoramic like this?" she said, lifting her arms to salute the sparkling floor-to-ceiling glass windows, where the leafy green of the trees on the pavement and the soft sunshine filtered through the apartment. I could see a man with his 2 black Maltese poodles walking down the street, and yet he would never have seen me. The apartment brought the outside in. "In my experience, Miss Jones, nothing ever beats a good view. But then again, you have to pay for it."
"It is magnificent," I admitted.
"This is a highly sought-after location, Miss Jones, but then I'm sure you're very aware of that. You get what you pay for in an idyllic neighborhood like this that is very much sought after and in high demand. The apartments in this location have a much fiercer price tag, I'm afraid."
"I appreciate all that," I said.
"Furthermore," continued Mrs. Armstrong, "the convenience is a huge plus for people living in these apartments. You're close to absolutely everything. All the best coffee shops and restaurants, of course. The design is perfect, don't you think, Miss Jones? As you can see, everything has been superbly furnished. I hope it's to your liking and taste, Miss Jones."
"It's absolutely beautiful. I can't fault it."
"You may be interested to know the designer is a young up-and-coming woman called Sally Pritchard. She has a remarkable way of blending coziness with glamour together. Not a skill that many designers can boast about. But in her case, she's a natural. So it's been furnished with great attention to detail. I'm sure you will agree. With your lifestyle very much taken into account. What do you think, Miss Jones? Is this by any chance an apartment that might tick your boxes, that could be suitable for your immediate needs?"
I had drawn in a deep breath, taken one more glance at the view, and just said, "I'll take it." Mrs. Armstrong clapped her hands together enthusiastically, in the same way my mother would have done when she was triumphant about something, which was an unusual thing to do.
I am so delighted, Miss Jones, that you appreciate this apartment as much as I do. I hope you will be very happy here. I moved in a day or so later, and I knew I'd made the right decision, moving into such a comfortable, luxurious apartment block. I really felt as if my life was changing, like a tree that had been struggling to produce blossoms for many years, suddenly, unexpectedly bursting into bloom, as if this was now the spring of my life. Things were going so well with Mr. Bridges, and against all the odds, I was beginning to seriously like the man. Why had I thought so badly of him? He had a great sense of humour. My mother was right. He simply demanded perfection, and only sacked people when they were shirking on their responsibilities. But if you made an effort, he rewarded you highly. Ostensibly after a hard day's work at the office, nothing was better for me, or more welcoming, than returning home to my cosy, comfortable little den. Although there was one major problem. The walls between my apartment to the next were paper thin, so I could hear a lot of banging and shouting coming from the next-door neighbour's apartment, which increasingly became rather unsettling, based on what I overheard. "You stupid, stupid woman! How can you be so bloody dim? Do you actually have a brain in there? Do you realise you've burnt the potatoes? My dinner is ruined. You've cremated the meat. I've been out at work all day. You've been here all this time. The least thing I can expect you to do is to make the house look halfway decent, and to have a home-cooked meal when I return. Is that too much to ask of you? You've been swanning around here all day, doing absolutely nothing, and you can't get the meat right, nor the potatoes." The next thing I heard was a mighty bang, as if the man had tossed the roast potatoes and meat all over the floor in his anger. I wouldn't be surprised if that is what he'd done. "And look at this! It's a joke! This was a good piece of lamb, but it's shriveled up and so dry. Do you not know how to cook? I can't possibly eat this. I might as well put gravy on a leather boot, and be done with that."
"I'm so sorry, Rog. I was just so exhausted today. I forgot about the roast. I fell asleep. I must have slept through the timer when it went off."
"You fell asleep? Is that the best you can do? It's a feeble, pathetic excuse. Shame on you. We'll have to order takeout now, because there's no way on God's earth that I'm going to eat this disgusting muck you've produced. Is it too much to ask for a home-cooked meal from time to time? Or can't you even do that properly?" The man was shrieking so loudly that my walls began to wobble and tremble from the mere vibration of his voice. I could hear a soft female voice saying, "I'm so sorry, Rog, really I am, but the pregnancy is making me so forgetful. I'm tired all the time. I must have fallen asleep. I think it's called pregnancy brain fog." "Blame it on your pregnancy all you like, why don't you? Any excuse in the book and you'll use it to your advantage. I'll have you know, on the very day my mother came out of the hospital after she had delivered me, in the evening she had produced a roasted dinner for my father, and it was faultless. Yet you, being pregnant, seem to have lost the ability to cook, unless you produce pitiful burnt offerings that are far from appetizing."
"I know, Rog. You've told me the story. But I'm not like your mother. I can't compete with her. I can't even be like her. I just don't have her kind of energy."
"You're telling me? You're useless. My mother's absolutely efficient. She told me I should never have married you. How right she was. Lazy cow was the word she used to describe you. And guess what? She was right on the money about you. Now get me that takeaway brochure, why don't you? We'll order takeaways. But tomorrow you better get those potatoes right, because if I live on takeaways, I'll end up looking like one. I take big pride in my appearance. I work out in the gym a lot, and I don't want to be living like some kind of takeout freak. No, I want decent home-cooked meals."
I didn't want to hear any more of this troubling, disquieting conversation. It did not make for pleasant listening, so I tried to drown out the man's voice, as he made an order with the pizza delivery company, and by the sounds of things, he was quite demanding. It was as I returned to my apartment the following evening, I observed a woman banging on the next-door apartment, as if she was trying her best to get in. I could clearly see she was pregnant. She looked up at me nervously, with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I noticed she had shopping bags in her hand that were weighing her down. She seemed exhausted and fatigued. There were red rims around her eyes, as if she'd been crying. "You must be my next-door neighbour," I said, rushing hurriedly over to her side. "Give me that bag. Let me help you. My name is June Jones, by the way. I live next door to you. I've only recently moved in. Can I help you with that shopping? It looks very heavy, and I can see you're pregnant." The young woman was panting. "That's kind," she said breathlessly. "I just can't find my front door keys. I'm sure I put them in my purse. I can't find it anywhere. I might have to call a locksmith to let me in. I may have locked myself out. I'm such a dreadful klutz at times." "Give me your purse," I said. "Let me look through it for you." Keys, in my experience, have a funny habit in slipping behind pockets in purses. It happens to me all the time. But then I do like purses with pockets. "I've already looked in there," said the woman, handing me her purse. "But be my guest. If you can find my keys, then you'll be my hero for the day. At the moment, I keep losing everything. My memory is like a sieve." I began to sift through the contents of the young woman's purse. I pulled out a set of keys that looked similar to my own, so I knew at once, given the similarity of the keys, that these were probably her apartment keys. "Are these your keys, by any chance?" I asked, tinkling them in my hand. The young woman's brown eyes brightened. She looked heartily relieved. The worried expression on her face dissipated, and deep furrows emerged between her brows. "Where did you get them from?" she asked. "I turned that purse of mine inside out. You must think I'm such an idiot for being so scatty. I'm not usually like this, I promise, but at the moment my head is in the clouds." I grinned. "They got caught up in the back pocket of your purse, that's all. That's why they didn't fall out when you tipped your purse out. I'm not surprised you didn't find them. That sort of thing happens to me quite a lot. Don't be so hard on yourself. Life is difficult enough already, is it not?" "Never more hard than at the moment, when I can't seem to do anything right," said the woman. "My husband tells me I'm becoming more and more dim each passing day. He's probably right about that. Look at me. I'm a dithering mess. Last night I was looking for my reading glasses. Everywhere I looked. And guess what? They were on my head the whole time. And now my keys were in my purse all along. I'm losing my mind. At the moment I'm forgetting everything. I believe it's known as pregnancy brain. My husband says that that's in my imagination and that there is no such thing, that it's just an excuse. Oh, I know all about pregnancy brain. When my mother's sister's daughter was pregnant, she couldn't remember what day of the week it was, let alone what her plans were for the day. I helped the young woman into her apartment with her shopping bags that I placed on the perfect white countertops. I was taken aback by how neat everything was in her apartment, with all the baked beans lined up in a neat row in the cupboards, and everything was in perfect alignment. I'd never seen anything that tidy before. "You're so tidy," I said in admiration. "You should see my cupboards next door, and I've only just moved in. They're nothing like this." "Well, I'm not that tidy," she chuckled. "That's my husband Rod, you see. Everything has to be perfect with him. Sometimes when he's not around, I mess the stuff up in the cupboards, just to get my revenge on him. But when he returns home, I straighten them out. Let me tell you, he would lose it if things weren't in apple pie order." "Oh, I see. So your husband's got OCD, has he?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "Is that what they call it?" "Yes, that's what he's got." I stayed with my next-door neighbour while she prepared me a coffee from her fancy coffee machine, while she began peeling potatoes for the roast her husband had demanded for the evening meal. It was very pleasant to enjoy a cosy chat with her in the kitchen, and for reasons I cannot comprehend, we seemed to connect, almost as if we'd known each other all our lives. I felt comfortable talking to this woman, as she did to me. "You must forgive my manners," she suddenly said. "I haven't even introduced myself to you. My name's Isabella. Everybody calls me Izzy." Izzy was an attractive woman, long dark brown hair, fair skin and a slender physique, which made her bump that much more conspicuous. My husband's name is Rog, but his real name is Roger. No one calls him that, of course. For some reason people like to shorten your names, don't they? They certainly do with my name, Isabella. Yes, they do, I agreed. But I think Izzy's a pretty name. Isabella is also pretty. But the shortened version suits you very much. How many months pregnant are you, Izzy? I asked. I'm 5 months pregnant, she told me, stroking her bump affectionately. I just can't wait to have this baby. I'm so excited about becoming a mother for the first time. But at the moment I feel like the walking dead. I'm so tired all the time. Rog thinks I'm making all these excuses for my condition, so that I can do the bare minimum around this apartment, but it's not true. He doesn't appreciate how exhausting it is growing a human being inside of you. Tell me about it. And on that subject, tell me to mind my own business, Izzy. But I did overhear the argument your husband had with you last night. I'm afraid the walls between our apartments are so thin. So I heard it all, I'm afraid. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I promise you that. Your husband was getting his knickers in a twist, throwing quite a tantrum over a roast dinner that you were supposed to cook for him. It sounded as if he was like letting off steam. I couldn't help but think he was being extremely unreasonable towards you. He's not abusive, is he? Izzy flushed. Her face grew a shade of pink. I'm sorry you had to overhear that. It couldn't have been very pleasant for you. My husband's a perfectionist, I'm afraid. That's the trouble. He hates mess of any kind. And, of course, he likes his meals all home-cooked. And I seriously let him down last night because the roast completely burnt. It was incinerated. I forgot all about it. He was raised by a punctilious mother, you see. One of those unfortunate people that has a perfect house where you would struggle to find a drop of dust anywhere. I mean, how can I compete with that? That mother of his is called Arizona. She was born there. So when her parents didn't know what to call her, they simply called her the name of the state they were living in. Talk about lazy. Roger's mother has OCD badly, just like Rog does. She raised him on home-cooked meals, so my husband expects the exact same standards from me. I'm continually disappointing him. He's just so incredibly demanding, if you know what I mean. He doesn't physically abuse me. He's never raised a hand to me, although sometimes I think he's tempted to do so. But he does feel strongly about not hitting a woman. Anyway, he can be emotionally abusive towards me, as of course you probably witnessed last night. Well, emotional abuse is not a good thing, Izzy, you know, I said. They say sticks and stones can break your bones and words can never harm you. But I don't believe that for a second. Yes, I am familiar with the phrase, Izzy said. Well, it's a downright lie, I continued. Words can be very cruel, can't they? When you say mean things to people, it can destroy their self-esteem and confidence forever. My mother's a wellness coach, you know. She says words can be deadly weapons, and we need to be accountable for what we say to people. Have you ever heard of the singer Karen Carpenter? She's a long time before our generation, but she had a spectacular voice. Yes, I know Karen Carpenter. Yes, she's not from our generation, but I've listened to her before, and she's got such an amazing voice. Well, I continued, they say she had the most beautiful female singing voice in the entire world. She died of anorexia nervosa, you know. Someone told her she was fat. It wasn't true. She was probably a little cuddly, but that was it. I mean, talk about words being deadly. Is that true? Said Izzy, looking shocked. I never knew that. Is that why she died? I'm afraid so. My mother believes the Bible when it says one day we'll be accountable for every word we speak. Karen Carpenter was never fat, but someone made her so self-conscious about her body that she starved to death. Oh, that's dreadful, said Izzy, pulling a face. That really, really sucks. I agree with you about that saying. Sometimes Rog makes me feel so useless and completely incompetent, as if everything I do is pathetic. He keeps comparing me with his mother. I can never compete with her. I don't think anybody can, if I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes he gets so angry his words can be absolutely cutting. He can undermine me. And since I've been pregnant, he seems to take great pleasure in calling me a lazy slob and a layabout, stuff like that. I can't seem to do anything right in his book, especially at the moment. You're pregnant, for goodness sake. You're human, I said. You're allowed to slip up from time to time. Your husband Rod should understand that he should be the one looking after you, not the other way round. After all, you're the one that's carrying his baby inside you. If he wants a roast dinner and you're too exhausted to cook it, then he can cook it himself, can't he? I ordered Isabella to sit down and to lift up her feet while I prepared the roast for her husband. I could see the relief on her face was immense. She was exhausted, too tired to be on her feet, tending to her husband's every single whim. So I was determined to be there for her, and very soon we became the very best of friends. One day Izzy confided in me about how much she absolutely loathed and abhorred hospitals, and that the only thing that was putting her nerves on edge about her forthcoming baby was having to give birth in a hospital. And I was the first person that could relate to her insecurities in that regard, for I had felt very upset being in a hospital, so I could understand her misgivings. I told her about my wrist operation that I'd had a few years prior, how I desperately struggled to come through my comatose state. She chuckled when I told her about my desire, in my delirium, to purchase a zebra and smuggle it all the way from the continent of Africa. That is hilarious! You must have been given way too much anaesthetic, don't you think? I'm not sure. I don't know how things operate in a hospital, but my mother did overhear two nurses having a conversation together. They gleamed something was off about me. It might be the reaction to the anaesthesia. I don't know what the problem was. But I know something was wrong, and I never want to go under the knife again. Well, I don't blame you. No wonder you're afraid of hospitals. Doctors do make mistakes, though, don't they? They're human like us, said Izzy. I have a friend who makes cakes for a living. Wedding cakes, you know. She got a last-minute order one day and agreed to make the cake because the customer was so persuasive, very demanding. My friend hates to refuse anyone a request, but she was so overworked and tired at the time. So the last thing she felt like doing was making a cake, which she can usually do standing on her head. Go on, I said. This is interesting. Well, one day in her haste to get the cake complete, she simply forgot to put the raising agent in it. That hadn't happened to her for years, because she's so professional. But she was in such a blind panic that the cake flopped. Everything went wrong. It was such a waste of expensive ingredients. After that, she learnt to say no to people when they put unreasonable demands on her. So even hardened professionals get it terribly wrong at times, you know. You make a very good point. You're right, I guess. It is possible that something could have gone wrong during the surgery. Maybe the anaesthetist himself was tired or overstressed. Or it could be, like you were saying, said Izzy, that maybe you personally don't react well to anaesthetics. We are all made so differently, aren't we? What works for one person may not work for another. I mean, I know a friend of mine who went on the carnivore diet, and it was very successful for her. Another friend of mine went on the same diet, and she got fat on it. I mean, how does that work out? I personally hate hospitals myself, and I'm dreading having my baby in one. But do you know you don't have to have a baby in a hospital, I said, if you don't want to. Most people do, but there are other options, things you can do, with the help of a midwife, of course. What do you mean there are other things I can do? What other options? Well, my mother's a wellness coach, isn't she? She had a client once that was absolutely terrified of hospitals like you are. This woman refused to go near one, if you know what I mean. In the end, it was organised for the woman in question to give birth to her baby in a birthing pool, set up in her own home, with a midwife on hand. The woman had her baby delivered in the water. She gave birth naturally to a happy, healthy 7-pound baby boy. She was so delighted to have a natural birth with her husband and midwife at hand. It's not for everyone, of course it's not. It's rather unconventional, but the couple embraced the idea, and for them it worked out swimmingly. I'm not saying it's right for you, of course. You are joking, said Izzy. That sounds absolutely amazing. Oh my goodness, I'd love to give birth like that. I really would. I mean, animals in nature give birth without supervision, don't they? I remember once watching this mother deer giving birth to her doe. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. So effortlessly easy. We make pregnancy so complicated, don't we? I'd love my pregnancy to be as natural as possible, with as little intervention as possible. You would? Yes, I would. You do realise, Izzy, that giving birth is a painful process. Of course I do. I'm not silly. I know it's painful. But that's the whole point. I want to experience it all. Well, I can't say that I agree with you on that one, Izzy. They do say it's a good thing that women forget about the pain after they've been through a delivery, or they might never have a baby again. That's what I've been told. Many women would be absolutely terrified not to be giving birth in a hospital. Your husband will not like the idea, I'm sure of that. I mean, if he's OCD already, making certain every tin in your cupboard is absolutely straight, and that your work surfaces shine within an inch of their life, I can't imagine how he'd react to the mess all over the place after you gave birth. It would probably be a grisly nightmare to him, I imagine. Well, that's too bad, isn't it? Said Izzy, laughing. I don't care about that. Rog doesn't care about me during this pregnancy. I'm the one that is actually carrying this baby, and I can choose how it's going to be born. It's got nothing to do with Rog as far as I'm concerned. That may be true, but in hospital you'll be safely monitored. They can give you epidurals and stuff like that, can't they, to manage the pain? And if something were to go horribly wrong, which I hope it doesn't, the doctors are at hand to assist in the delivery. Because things can happen, you know. Babies can be born breech, stuff like that. You have to prepare for every eventuality, don't you? Well, not really. I think everything's going to be fine if I give birth in a birthing pool. It sounds absolutely amazing. I can't imagine anything going wrong. Think about it very carefully, Izzy, before you jump into anything too impulsively. A birthing pool is going to be a very natural birthing process. The midwife will be there to help you with the delivery, I dare say. But with that kind of arrangement, you'll have to have the approval of your gynecologist. If you want to go down that route, I mean. And it's certainly not for everyone. Some people might find the idea of giving birth at home, in a birthing pool, quite horrifying, especially if it gets painful. I wouldn't do it myself, if I were you, because I'm not that brave. Izzy looked at me with bright eyes. I told you, I don't care about the pain, not at all. I want to feel every single twinge. It's going to make me feel so alive. I don't care. That pain is an important part of the birthing process. It'll make the experience all the more real, all the more worthwhile for me. And as for the mess, well, Rog cannot expect a birth to be a clean experience, can he? He'll be delusional if he thinks that. There's going to be blood and placenta all over the place, and he's going to have to deal with it. Well, talk about your birthing options with the professionals, I said. That's all I'm saying, Izzy. You've got your choices, but you don't have to do everything by the book. Izzy looked at me reflectively. As I keep saying to you, this is my baby. How I deliver him is up to me, not up to Rog at all. It's my decision, and it's nice to be able to make the decision for myself this time. I'm the mother. If Rog was giving birth to the baby, I'd have to respect his decision on where he chose to have it, whether I liked it or not. It's just the way it is. I had never seen Izzy look so resolutely determined before. She was quite subservient as far as her husband was concerned, always apologising for her blunders. But on this matter of giving birth, it seemed she was firmly anchored into making her own decisions. I had a horrible sense of prognostication that my suggestion about giving birth in this unconventional way would one day come back to bite me, and in some way it would seem my gut instincts were proved correct. The following morning who should be standing at my front door but Izzy's formidable husband, Rog himself. No prizes for guessing why he'd paid me such an impromptu visit. I should have guessed this would happen. I'd met the man once before, and never particularly warmed to him, as he'd been rather aloof towards me, and only tolerated me because I was his wife's new friend. "Oh, you're our neighbour, are you?" he had said. I had tried to be friendly towards him, but he'd been very brusque towards me and pretty much ignored me most of the time. On this rather nonchalant Saturday morning, when I was looking forward to spending the day, having a leisurely stroll around the shops and buying myself an item of clothing from a boutique called Dreamboat, where I'd been given a gift certificate from Mr. Bridges for my birthday, perhaps I would enjoy having coffee on the go and a nice snack at the Smoking Rib, which did the most delectable toasted cheese I'd ever tasted. Rog stood on the other side of my door, glaring at me furiously, like a formidable wild animal that would like to get its sharp claws into my jugular and tear me apart, if given the chance. I don't mind admitting that my heart began to flutter very nervously in my chest. I'm not normally predisposed to being intimidated by people, apart from Mr. Bridges at work, but Rog was a big man, built like some of those very tall men you get from Scandinavian countries. It was clear that he worked out tirelessly in the gym to get as shredded as possible. He had massive biceps that were so tight they could practically crack walnuts. He had tattoos on his arms of snakes and dragons, and that for me personally was rather sinister, but I dare say a lot of people would say that was pretty cool. There were the words, "Power is in my hands," written across his lower arm. This man really did fancy himself, I thought. The most intimidating thing about Rog was, of course, his sheer size. He could have been 6'5", so he was incredibly tall, and suddenly I felt conspicuously small by contrast. He looked down at me with a visible hatred in his eyes that was quite palpable. If that man could have spit on me, he probably would have done so. He was so contemptuous towards me. I tried to ask myself whether I could consider Rog handsome, if he didn't have such an obnoxious, unendearing personality. In truth, I'm not sure whether I would have, as the inside does have a nasty habit of showing up on the outside veneer, even if you try desperately to hide it. If I saw him in passing along the street, would I say he was good-looking, in a Germanic sort of way? Maybe. He had the stereotype Scandinavian good looks, with the blonde wavy hair, blue eyes and golden complexion. His jawline was square, which a lot of women I dare say would find rather attractive, as it accentuates his all-around masculinity, I suspect. But for me personally, masculinity starts from the inside out, not the outside in. There was a vague Brad Pitt look about him, you could say, but any attractiveness he might have possessed was cruelly robbed by the formidable look he chose to give me. In that moment he scared me half to death, and I'm not ashamed to admit this. I would have happily slammed the door in his face if given the chance, but that would be incredibly rude, given he was my next-door neighbour, and besides that, the husband of my new best friend. He quickly put his foot forward in the doorway, as if anticipating what I was about to do, and abruptly pushed past me, walking brazenly into my apartment, with a presumptuousness that took my breath away. I couldn't believe his shameful audacity, but it was very clear that Rog did not have any social graces. "I see you're getting all nice and cosy with my Izzy," he said, poking his finger at me accusingly. "I don't mind you being a friend of my wife's, because it's good for her to have girlfriends. At least I thought it was. But you are not a good influence on her. My wife has changed hanging around with the likes of you. It's like she's become a wild mare that needs to be broken in. You've crossed the line here. How dare you go filling my wife's head with these crazy nonsensical ideas? What are you? A new age freak? Some kind of hippie?" "No, I'm not a hippie. I don't know why you would say such a thing. Nor am I new age. Far from that, in fact." "Well, you sound like a hippie. What's all this stuff and nonsense about a birthing pool and a midwife at hand to supervise my wife giving birth in our apartment, for God's sake? Who in their right mind does that? She's planning to make all these arrangements for a ridiculous delivery because you put this absurd idea into her head, and I blame you for this.
I'm not going to forget this in a hurry, let me tell you.
Look, I didn't put any idea into Izzy's head, I said defensively. Izzy and I are good friends, but she's got a mind of her own and is perfectly capable of making her own decisions without my influence.
You could kid me. And you call yourself a friend, do you? When you suggest that my baby should be born in a birthing pool in our apartment? Are you completely insane? This is my baby we're talking about.
And it's Izzy's as well, not just yours. Look, Izzy's a little apprehensive about giving birth in a hospital, that's all. I told her there were other ways to deliver her baby, that she didn't have to give birth in a hospital if she didn't want to, that she could make alternative arrangements. That's all I said to her.
What is wrong with you, woman? You're lucky you're female. I'd bloody clobber you if given half the chance. Honestly, my wife is fixated about this nonsensical, ridiculous, insane idea, and there is nothing I can do to change her mind. I had a funny feeling about you. The first moment I laid eyes on you, I knew you were not good news, and it seems I was right about you. I'm very upset about this plan of my wife's, and it's all your fault. It's your influence over her.
Look, I'll do my best to talk to Izzy for you. I'll try and persuade her to change her mind about the birthing pool. But you know she can be very stubborn about things.
You better talk to her long and hard, woman. Knock some sense into that head of hers. Ever since she's been pregnant, she's gone all dithery on me. And now she's dreaming about having her baby in our apartment. She's already going to order that damn birthing pool.
Don't be hard on her. You should be looking after her during this special time. She needs your support, Rog, while the baby is growing inside her. Pregnancy can be very tough on a woman, you know.
What do you think I'm doing, you stupid, stupid woman? I do nothing but look after my wife. I want her to have her baby in the hospital, like a normal person. But no, you come along and fill my wife's head with marshmallow ideas. You've got her all excited about this natural nonsense. Never heard anything more ridiculous in my entire life. Have you stopped to consider my wife might actually need pain management? She might need an epidural or something like that. And what if things go wrong and there is no doctor on hand to help her in the delivery? If anything happens to my baby, anything happens to it, it'll be your fault.
Look, I want to support Izzy in any way I can, I said. I've warned her about the potential problems and hazards of having a baby at home. But she's not concerned about those things. And Izzy feels sure her gynecologist will be fine about the whole thing, given her pregnancy is going so smoothly.
That's because my wife goes to a female gynecologist that is woo-woo, much like you and my wife are. Izzy needs your support, young lady, like a hole in the head. You're no friend to her. You're like an annoying wasp buzzing around a can of sweet Coca-Cola. I don't know what my wife ever saw in you. I don't know where the likes of you come from. But you're not from around here. People around here conduct themselves in a civilized way, I'll have you know. I wish to God you hadn't moved in next door to us.
He furiously stomped out of my apartment and banged the front door behind him, so fiercely that I jumped out of my skin. It took a while for me to calm down, and my Saturday morning was ruined, as the idea of shopping and picking up coffee had lost its sweet allure, and not even the thought of a melted toasted cheese could drag me away from my apartment. I felt miserable for the rest of the day, feeling great regret for having wound up my very aggressive next-door neighbour. It left me with an uneasy, disquieted feeling that coiled its way obtrusively around my gut, like a slithering snake. One thing was for certain. I didn't like Rog at all. He was a menacing man. What on earth did Izzy see in the likes of him? She was a kind and gentle spirit, while he was maliciously ruthless and dogmatic. But I did clandestinely admire her for standing up to him on how she wanted to deliver her baby. Good on her, I thought, for not letting him lay down the law, which normally happened in their household. It was about time Rog was put in his place. After my less than reassuring encounter with Rog, I did try my level best to persuade Izzy to take the hospital route as far as the delivery of her baby was concerned, but she wouldn't hear of it. "Your husband's in a right state, Izzy, over everything," I warned her. "He came marching over to my apartment, accusing me of being some kind of hippie or new age freak, filling your head with wild, nonsensical ideas. He thinks I'm a very bad influence on you, Izzy, and he's very concerned about the delivery of your baby, in case something were to go wrong. Maybe you should listen to him, do things his way. I mean, you both are having this baby. Think about it for a moment, will you?" "I'm really sorry that he did that to you. I really am, June. I'm sorry he waltzed over to your apartment, causing such a spectacular scene. It's embarrassing, it really is. He had no right to do that to you, and this is not your fault. Don't blame yourself, for goodness sake. You mentioned an alternative form of delivery. I didn't even know I had other options available to me, and I liked the idea. Unfortunately, Rog thinks that taking the natural way of doing things is like taking a step backwards in time. My husband can be a nightmare when he gets mad about something, and I'm sorry you were on the receiving end of his wrath. I think right now you're not exactly Roger's favourite person, but I wouldn't worry about it." "You're telling me, Izzy, I hate to say this to you, but your husband really scares me. When he walked past me straight into my house, without even my inviting him in, I seriously thought he was going to thump me. I've never seen anyone look so angry. He was absolutely furious. Well, don't let him upset you. His bark is worse than his bite, June. He's being absolutely ridiculous about all this. My pregnancy is perfectly healthy. I've had that confirmed by my gynecologist. I've got everything organised with a midwife on hand. The birthing pool is set up. It only needs to be filled with warm water on the day that I give birth. I'm excited about doing this the natural way, and I don't care a jot what Rog thinks about it. It's about time, for once in my life, we do things my way and not his. I'm so relieved I can give birth at home. You have no idea." "I cannot believe you're standing up for yourself like this, Izzy," I said, unable to hide my admiration. "I think if I was married to the likes of your husband, Rog, I would buckle under the forceful pressure of his demands. Your husband frightens me a lot. I used to consider myself intimidated about my boss, Mr. Bridges, at work. But your husband makes Mr. Bridges seem like a walk in the park. Your husband is so intimidating. I've never met anyone like him before. And it doesn't help that he's massive, in size, I mean. Rog is a big bully. I wouldn't worry about it. You're not the first to feel this way about him. Sometimes I'm scared rigid of him myself. But I'm not going to let him bully me over this. Don't blame yourself for any of this, June. You merely opened my eyes to other options available for me about giving birth. But are you sure you want to do it this way? I asked. What if the delivery is painful? What if something goes wrong? I want to embrace it all. Don't you understand, June? And I'm not worried about things going wrong. My pregnancy looks perfectly fine as far as the gynecologist is concerned. I'm not concerned about it at all. I think I get where you're going with this, I said. Not that I'm going to say it makes any sense to me at all. Me, myself, I hate hospitals. But certainly if I was having a baby of my own, I'd definitely be having it in a hospital. And to be fair to your husband, Rog, I do understand his trepidation about your choice. It can't be easy for him, and I can't fault him on that one, although he is so incredibly disagreeable. When it came close to the time that Izzy would be sure to give birth, I spent less time with her, as her husband Rog was hanging around the place like a noxious bad smell, and I knew better than to spend time with Izzy when he was around, as he would make me feel very unwelcome. He had made his feelings about me very clear, and whenever I crossed his path, he would abruptly say, "Oh, it's you, the hippie again. And just when I thought I was going to have a good day, you've certainly ruined it for me." I knew I wouldn't be able to help Izzy during the birthing process, much as I would have liked to, as Rog would not want me anywhere near his wife while she was giving birth, and I respected that. Izzy was now enormous, as the day of her delivery loomed ever closer. I noticed her ankles were getting incredibly swollen from the weight of her baby, and behind Roger's back I helped her around the house as much as I could. Even though his wife was heavily pregnant, Rog still continued to expect her to cook for him and to clean the apartment up so fastidiously that there wasn't a dust particle in sight, with his exacting standards, of course. I could see Izzy was beginning to resent his constant demands when she was battling extreme exhaustion, as growing a baby can be tough on the body. "I love my husband to a degree," she confided in me, "but I don't like him very much. What do you think about that, June? I really don't like him. I hate to admit that, but I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought, yes, I do love him, but no, I don't like him." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Exactly what I've just said. I don't like him. I would hardly describe us as friends, and being friends is so important with your partner, is it not? It's a prerequisite for a happy marriage, don't you think?" "Of course it is," I agreed. "I'd never ever marry someone unless they were first my best friend. Otherwise, what's the point? It's a recipe for disaster." Izzy let out a rather large, discontented sigh. "Are you all right? What's the matter, Izzy?" I asked. She shrugged her shoulders nonchalantly. "Well, it's just everything we've just been discussing, isn't it? I mean, I wish I was best friends with Rog. I wish we were so close. But we're not. We're none of those things. I made so many mistakes when I was younger," she said with regret. "For the life of me, I do not know why I ever married Rog. Sometimes I look at him, June, and think, what the hell have I done? What the hell did I ever see in this man? You know what I mean?" I nodded. "I think I know what you mean. Things do change, don't they? Sometimes people do too." "It's not that," said Izzy, shaking her head. "I don't think Rog ever changed. I don't even know if I really did. Maybe I did. Maybe I grew up. Maybe I saw the wood for the trees. I don't know. But the truth is, I never knew Rog. When we got together, we were far too young. I was innocent, naive, callow, ignorant, and incredibly impressionable. Everybody told me I'd snagged a big chunk of all right. And you know what? I believed them. Well, to be fair, he has got those stereotyped Scandinavian good looks. He takes care of his body, doesn't he?" "Yes, he does, but that's no big deal. What's the point of caring about the outside when the inside is in a bad way?" Izzy crinkled her brow. She made a face. "You know what? When you buy an apple, and it's so perfect on the outside, you would never believe when you bit into that perfect apple that it could taste so awful. That's what it's been like with Rog. I get what you're saying. You don't like the fact that the outside doesn't match his inside. That's exactly right. You see, I fell for Rog very hard. Hook, line and sinker, you could say. I was completely smitten, totally infatuated by him. I wouldn't have a bad word said about him. I believed he was pretty close to as perfect as you could get. I was so seduced by his handsome appearance. Can you believe I was that shallow, that naive, that whimsical? My mother saliently warned me about the likes of Rog. She never liked him one little bit, neither did my father, and they told me as much. They both believed that he had an inflated ego and a huge superiority complex, where he believed he was better than everybody else around him. They also felt he was completely controlling over me, and was rather belittling and patronizing. I told them they were completely wrong about Rog, that they had misunderstood him, that he was a genuinely nice guy, and I really believed that. They thought Rog liked me because he was attracted to me physically, and because I was easy to control and dominate, as I'm naturally quite demure by nature. They were right about that, of course. My mother did happen to notice Roger's OCD, I'm afraid, when he lined up all her serving dishes in a straight line, and went around resetting her table, claiming the knives and forks weren't straight. She believed that Roger's punctiliousness would come back to haunt me one day, as by nature I'm inclined to be rather messy, so she saw this as an area of potential conflict in our relationship. She wasn't wrong about that, because as far as Roger's concerned, I can't do anything right. Everything is off-centre with me. Nothing is perfectly straight, if you know what I mean. My mother thought my predisposition to being rather messy would drive Rog absolutely insane. But the truth is, these days I'm not as messy as I used to be, because I fear how Rog will react towards me. By nature, I'm quite comfortable to leave clothes hanging on a chair, in a disordered array, but never with Rog around. When he's around, I'm literally walking on eggshells, so afraid to upset him in any way. So Roger's extreme perfectionism is driving you potty, I said. Izzy rolled her eyes. You can say that. Honestly, I don't know how I'm going to manage when the dirty diapers come along. I'm not sure I can continue living in this tense environment. Let's just say with the way Roger's treating me during this pregnancy, the cracks are beginning to show in our relationship. He's constantly telling me I'm a lazy cow, that I'm dithery and sloppy, that kind of thing, that I'm brain dead, and that everything I do is a catastrophic mistake. He finds me far too messy and complains tirelessly about my untidiness, even though I think I'm being incredibly neat. The worst part of it all is we're not friends, if you know what I mean, and we never will be. That's the problem. I nodded. To tell you the truth, I'm not surprised you aren't friends. I mean, look at Rog. He's not a very approachable man. I don't suppose he has many friends anyway. Yes, he works out at the gym. Yes, he takes care of his body. But he's actually not a sociable person. He doesn't communicate well, and he's always angry. It's hardly surprising that you don't particularly like him very much. I don't. I never warm to him. He's cold and aloof. If it makes you feel any better, Izzy, you're not alone. A lot of marriages are like that, you know, where the couple are very detached towards each other. Is that supposed to make me feel better, June? Because I assure you it does not. I guess this birthing plan of mine has given me a feeling of power over Rog. It's a good feeling, because he moans about it non-stop. His mother was on the phone the other day from Arizona, begging me to reconsider my birthing options. She's devastated about my decision to have an unconventional, rather unorthodox birth. And do you know what? It actually feels good to be able to put my foot down and to insist on doing things my way. I know it sounds really dreadful, but I'm rather enjoying being contrary. Let's just say Rog and his mother do not like not being able to call all the shots as far as I'm concerned. But I'm the one carrying this baby, so all the decisions are mine. What did Roger's mother say to you? I asked curiously. I had understood from Izzy and her constant jabs about her dreadful mother-in-law that she was a capriciously difficult woman who was a perfectionist much like Rog and loved everything in life to be done smoothly, in a well-structured, very ordered way. For her, even leaving a coffee cup behind on the side of the sink, without washing it up at once and putting it away in the cupboards, was a criminal offence as far as she was concerned. Izzy had visited her mother-in-law's minimalistic home a plethora of times. It was devoid of clutter, smelling strongly of bleach. She had been unable to locate a speck of dust on anything. The woman's kitchen cabinets were so perfectly arranged, with baked beans and all tinned goods, lined up like an army of soldiers. Izzy described her mother-in-law's house as being so white, without any cheerful or bright colours around, and being as sterile and as unwelcome as a hospital. There was nothing about it that was wholesome or homely, she had said. I guess I understand now why Rog doesn't like the bright Moroccan colours I like, that I brought into this apartment. If he had his way, this apartment would be all white, and there would be nothing but the bare minimum of design, and there would be no ornaments on the coffee tables or countertops. You know, the only thing he likes to see is the coffee machine, the toaster, and a bowl of apples, and that's about all with Rog. Izzy began to act out her mother-in-law's reaction to the news of her birthing plan, which I could not help but find mildly amusing. I watched my friend rather successfully play out the role of her mother-in-law, even putting on the same posh voice to emulate her. Izzy should have been an actress, I thought. She imitated her mother-in-law masterfully. I had to try and conceal the big smile that was playing on my face, because Izzy was rather amusing. "Well," she said to me, "what is this I hear about you? Having a birthing plan set up in your apartment for the delivery of my grandchild. Please tell me this is some warped kind of insidious joke of yours, and that you're just toying with me, June. Because otherwise, my dear, I really am in a position where I find myself questioning your sanity." "It's true, and for your information, I'm perfectly sane." "It doesn't sound like you are, my dear. You've lost leave of your senses. You really have. Rog tells me your pregnancy brain is driving him completely bonkers, and by the sounds of you, I can understand why. He says you're all over the place with your scattiness, forgetting food in the oven, leaving it to burn to a cinder, failing to remember some of the most basic things you're supposed to do regarding household chores. Rog tells me you're becoming quite slovenly, dear. Very sloppy, leaving damp bathroom towels all over the bathroom floor, and half-open shampoo bottles lying in the bathtub, spilling out their contents. Dreadful waste, if you ask me. Shame on you, dear. I thought better of you than that." "I was never like that when I was pregnant, I hasten to say. I managed to keep a scrupulously clean house. Never once did I ever burn anything for dinner. Furthermore, on the very day I delivered my precious Rog, I was producing his father first-class roasts with all the trimmings. I made it my mission to be an excellent wife and mother. You would do well to do the same. You don't want Rog to lose interest in you, do you, dear? He's very particular about his woman." "Bully for you," I was saying to her under my breath. "Aren't you so perfect, Cora?" I think she heard because she snapped, "What was that you were saying, Izzy? I hope, my dear, that you were not insulting me. If you must know, Izzy, I'm terribly concerned about my Rog. You're being incredibly selfish and self-centered, not including him in this birthing plan. It takes two to make a baby, not just one. I don't think you're being fair or reasonable. I am very shocked by all of this. I would like to remind you that Rog works incredibly hard to give you a high quality of life. He's worried to bits about this crazy, nonsensical birthing plan. And frankly, I can't blame him for that. I've never heard anything so ridiculous in all my life. In my day, people would have been appalled by a decision like this. Very shocked. It's not natural, nor is it normal." "Cora," I snapped, "there's nothing nonsensical about my birthing plan. Many women have chosen to go down this route very successfully, and I intend to be one of them." There was an uncomfortable, awkward pause at the end of my cell phone, as Cora digested what I was saying. She certainly did not like what she was hearing. Then, with an abrupt, indignant snort, she said, "I'm so sorry, Izzy, to have to tell you this, but I believe in being straightforward about things, and this is objectionable. Really it is. I cannot imagine for the life of me why any sane, clear-thinking woman would consider giving birth in this unorthodox way. Most normal women, myself included, judiciously have a baby in a hospital where you're supposed to have a baby, in the maternity ward. You would be wise to do the same. Have you given any thought to the baby you're carrying? No, I suppose you haven't. Why does that not surprise me? It's all about you, isn't it, Izzy? So typical of you.
What about the fact that your baby may very well need medical supervision? There will be no doctors on hand to help you in the delivery plan. This I find very disquieting. Cora, there's going to be a midwife supervising me through the whole birthing process. A midwife? What does a midwife really know? You need a doctor around to supervise everything. What if things go horribly awry? Have you stopped to consider that for a second? Have you stopped to consider this child's grandmother? And have you stopped to consider Rog and the baby itself? No, you have not. You don't think about anybody else except yourself, and it's disgusting. And furthermore, I cannot believe that this gynecologist of yours is supporting you in this outrageous endeavour. I wonder, has she got cabbage between her ears? Has the world gone stark raving mad? Rog tells me the deranged next-door neighbour, living next to you, I believe, has been filling your head with these archaic, unconventional ideas. Now, why on earth would you listen to someone like that? She's a stranger to you. You barely know her very well. Are you going to listen to her advice? What does she know? I understand she's never even had a baby. She doesn't even know you from Adam, does she? You should be listening to me and Rog. We know what is best for you.
This has got nothing to do with my next-door neighbour, Cora, I said indignantly. I've become good friends with her, though. But I'm having a baby this way by my own personal choice. I want to have my baby at home, in a comfortable place in the birthing pool. I've organised the whole thing, and I'm not about to go changing my mind any time soon. I'm sorry, Cora, if that doesn't suit you, but I've made my mind up, and it's not to be changed.
For goodness sake, Izzy. The last time I looked at you, you didn't have flippers. You're not a dolphin. Honestly, I can see exactly what Roger's talking about. Your pea-sized pregnancy brain is leading you astray up the garden path. You're not making any sense with these whimsical fancies of yours. Have you any comprehension of how painful it is to give birth? Let me tell you one thing for nothing, Izzy. When you're in that birthing pool, you're going to be in agonizing pain, and you're going to be wishing with all your heart you would listen to me and Rog. And you will be wishing that you had an epidural or something like that to offer you relief. But you're not going to have any of that in a birthing pool. Why do you think I only ever had one child? Some women conveniently forget the pain they have during childbirth, but I never forgot it for a second, and I knew that I could never go through that nightmare again. I even clandestinely hid my contraceptive tablets from my husband, because I knew I was not going to go through that pain ever again. My husband just simply believed I couldn't fall pregnant, and that was that.
Of course I'm aware of the pain that a woman goes through, Cora, when they're giving birth. I'm not stupid. Believe it or not, I want to embrace the pain. Feel it all. Animals do it in the wild, don't they? They haven't got a choice in the matter. But we humans, we want to subdue everything with painkillers, to numb the pain.
You're not an animal, Izzy, for God's sake. I can see that there is no talking any common sense into you. If you ask me, you're as deranged as your next-door neighbour so obviously is. I curse the day that that vagabond moved into the next-door apartment to yours. She's an appalling influence on you. All this New Age stuff, it's ridiculous. Rog says that since she's moved in, you've become much more sloppy, and this friend appears to be encouraging you to be a slob. Now, I'm very disappointed in you, Izzy. Really, I am. I expected better from the likes of you. You're really letting Rog down, and you're letting me down. He's so gutted about this barbaric decision of yours. And as far as I'm concerned, you're letting your baby down as well. I hope you're proud of yourself, Izzy.
Look, Cora, I'm not deliberately trying to upset you or Rog. That's the last thing I want to do. And I'm sorry you don't agree with my birthing plan. But I am doing things for me, and it's not because I'm being selfish. It's what's going to work for me. It's what I want. It's the most comfortable way for me to deliver my baby. I want to assure you I have a great midwife on hand. She's helped people give birth lots and lots of times. She has a plethora of experience behind her, and she knows all about birthing pools.
And that's supposed to make me feel better, Izzy, is it? Well, I assure you it is doing no such thing. I don't care how professional your midwife claims to be, or how many babies she successfully delivered. That is not the point. She's encouraging you down this crazy path. So she's as bad as your gynecologist is. Babies are not meant to be born in the water. You're not a bloody dolphin, are you?
She slammed down the phone on me. Good on you, Izzy, I said, for sticking up for yourself. I'm proud of you. But think about it. Long term, are you really going to stay with Rog after you've actually given birth to your baby? I mean, the man makes you so unhappy. Why don't you just leave him for good? You can't spend the rest of your life feeling unhappy. And why would you want to raise your child in a dysfunctional home? Kids can pick up on their parents' unhappy energy, you know. It's not good for them. It's far better to be a single parent than to raise a child in an unhappy environment. I really believe that, you know. If only it were that easy, Izzy sighed. Then I would leave Rog in a heartbeat. But the trouble is, there's so many challenges for me raising a child on my own. Financially, I could never afford to abscond. Where would I go? And knowing Rog, he'd come after me and drag me back home. He's very persuasive, you know. You could stay with me, I said. I would look out for you. I'd help look after you. It's kind of you to say, but it's not practical. You know it isn't. There's my baby to consider, said Izzy. He or she is going to need a father, and I'm not sure I can raise my child without Roger's help. I do know raising a baby is hard work. You only have to look at breastfeeding mothers to know this. They always look completely worn out, and that's likely going to be me. I'm worn out before I even give birth to this baby. So I haven't got the stomach to do this all on my own. I mean, I'd need to become a single working mother, and I haven't got the strength to do that, to go to work and then look after my baby at the same time, organise childcare and that. In an ideal world, I'd love to leave Rog. That would be the most wonderful thing to do. But the practicalities make that decision close to impossible for me. Don't you see? I do get it. I really do. One night I heard a great deal of activity going on in the next-door apartment belonging to Izzy and Rog. I could hear Izzy's pained cries and the sounds of what I assumed was a midwife scuttling around and telling Izzy to take deep breaths, that she was going to be all right. Breathe! Breathe slowly. In, out, in, out. That's right. You're doing well. You're doing well. Oh, the pain! The pain! Calm down. It's going to be fine. Do I have to listen to her? Didn't I tell her she should have gone to a hospital? I knew it was going to be like this. I heard Izzy let out an ear-piercing scream. A chill went down my spine, and I shuddered. The birthing process must have caused her more agonizing pain than she had envisaged. I had warned her about this, but Izzy had refused to listen. She was a braver woman than I was, and I admired her for that. If I was giving birth, I would absolutely insist on an epidural, because I can't stand enduring pain of any kind. I wish I could be on hand to have helped Izzy, but that could not happen with Roger around, who had decided that I was the lowest form of pond life, and he certainly didn't want me anywhere near his wife. I had warned Izzy that giving birth to a baby was no walk in the park. I was now dying to know if she'd given birth to a boy or a girl. She didn't want to know the sex of her baby, and only wanted to find out after the baby was born, something I failed to understand, because I would have wanted to know what the baby's sex was. She knew Rog wanted a boy. Soon things became very quiet, and I took this to be a positive, very good sign. I smiled happily to myself as I thought of Izzy holding her new baby in her arms with a contented, gleeful smile on her face. I was sure she was exhausted and euphoric at the very same time. She must be so happy to finally be a mother. Hopefully I could give her a call surreptitiously in the morning, visit her while dropping her some chocolates, flowers, and a magazine for her to read. That was, of course, if the ever-insufferable, domineering Rog had the good grace to leave the apartment for a while, so that I could clandestinely descend on my friend and visit her. I knew Rog did not want me anywhere near his wife. He had made that perfectly clear. He was actively encouraging Izzy to sever all ties with me. I knew Izzy would be a proud mother. She had the nursery kitted out to perfection and expertly prepared for the new little addition in her life. A week prior we had enjoyed a hen party together with lots of friends who had given her delightful gifts in eager anticipation for the arrival of her forthcoming new baby. Somehow I did manage to get to sleep, but then in the middle of the night I heard this banging sound at my front door. I sat up with a start, having been startled by the rude interruption to my dreams. What the hell, I thought. What the hell? The banging was persistently loud. It made me so nervous that I actually went and removed the baseball bat that I kept under my bed as a protective makeshift weapon that I never considered I would ever need to use. In truth, I thought the Grim Reaper had to be at my front door by the ominous sound of that very unsettling rapping. I tiptoed cautiously across the luxurious thick pile of carpet from my bedroom to the entrance hall, without making a single sound. Someone was trying to look through the letterbox in the front door. They kept banging it loudly and trying to look through the slit. Whoever they were, they seemed resolutely determined to get my undivided attention, and were not going away any time soon. That was clear. I sneaked up to the door, glad that I was decently clad in a rather stylish tracksuit, wearing a pair of non-slip socks on my feet, so that I looked halfway presentable and wasn't wearing a flimsy nightie. I gingerly peered through the spy hole to see a familiar figure standing there in the soft light of the outside lights that lit up the passageway of the apartment block. So even at the dead of night like this, you could see relatively well, although at the time we had no cameras in the apartments. I could see it was Rog. What the hell did he want at this time of night? I inwardly grimaced, my heart flapping wildly in my chest. "Who is it?" I called nervously, knowing full well who it was. There was a long pause, and then I heard a deep voice saying, "It's Rog. I thought you should know that Izzy had a baby boy." It was Roger's genuinely excited words that dismantled the apprehensive guard I'd put up to defend myself against such a man. I should have told him to go away. I suddenly felt excited. Izzy had had a baby boy. This was the best news ever. Maybe Rog was going to be halfway decent towards me from now on. He was probably a proud father and wanted to shout out the good news about his baby boy to the rooftops and to everybody else who would listen, even if it meant he had to share this news with his annoying next-door neighbour. I assumed the birthing process had gone very well, and maybe Rog would apologize to me for being so unreasonable. I opened the door unhesitantly, as not for a single second did it occur to me that I could be putting myself in danger. I had heard Roger's reassuring, calm voice. I had not fully appreciated that the kind tone of voice could easily have been a ruse to get me off my guard. I put the baseball bat into the umbrella stand next to the hall table. It wouldn't look good opening the door holding that up. I opened the door, pulling back the chain, and then Rog stormed past me rudely into my apartment, with the former rather abrupt presumptuousness he had displayed in the past, where he completely abandoned any social graces or good manners. The only way I can describe his entrance into my apartment was like an elephant in musk, as he thundered into my apartment, as if his manic testosterone levels seemed to have shot into overdrive, almost as if he couldn't contain the burning hot molten lava boiling within him that was about to explode. It would seem that all the ornaments in my apartment began to rattle precariously and shake, as if even these inanimate objects sensed trouble was brewing. The stuffed zebra my mother had given me after my wrist operation came flying off the mantel, landing in the middle of the floor, as if dead, almost like a prognostic, inauspicious omen about what was about to unfold. Rog walked over my stuffed zebra, crushing it beneath his heavy boots. He thundered towards me with brusque, ungainly movements, like elephants in the wild, running through the brambles without giving them any attention. My favourite glass vase that was balanced on a round glass wrought-iron table seemed to have become airborne for a brief second. It crashed on the ground, scattering the roses, petals and water all over the thick pile carpet. The glass itself broke into hundreds of tiny shards. I had no concern for the mess. My only worry was getting this wild, untamed animal out of my apartment, as Rog looked absolutely savage. I was trembling in my socks. I stared at him, with a feeling of impending dread overcoming me. The way Rog was glaring at me rattled my bones to the core, and sent my fear shooting through my blood as frantically as a fast-moving freight train. I could virtually see steam rising out of Roger's flaring nostrils, and I'm not kidding either. Rather like the condensation you'll see on a bathroom mirror. He appeared to be sweating. There was sweat all over his forehead, beads of perspiration running down his face. Seeing him in this peeved state made fear become my immediate companion, and helplessness its very close friend. "What's going on, Rog?" I stammered. "Why are you so angry? What's the matter?" My words seemed to provoke Rog to further rage. He bristled, and with one powerful, mighty hand he lunged towards me with a forceful grip. He thrust one hand under my chin, and then pushed me against the wall. It felt as if every bone within me threatened to break. Was the man really not aware of his own strength? He was hurting me badly. I winced in pain. "Get your hands off me, Rog, please!" I blurted, trying to push the man off me. But I was no match for him, and my efforts were futile. "What's going on, Rog? Why are you being like this? Why are you so mad?" "You stupid, stupid woman," he said, while holding me down against the wall. "You really don't know, do you? You have no clue what you've done, because you're as stupid as you look, and as ignorant. If you must know, my Izzy gave birth to a stillborn baby earlier this evening. She's devastated. Devastated," he repeated again, "besides herself with grief. You hear that? And I blame you for all this. This is your fault entirely. You are responsible for murdering my boy. I'm sure the baby could have been saved if there had been a doctor around, but no such thing. That wasn't possible, because she gave birth to her baby in a birthing pool thanks to you. You filled my wife with insane, warped ideas, and now she's lost our baby. You're an interfering, big, nosy busybody. My wife was all right until she met the likes of you." I trembled. Tears spilled down my cheeks, dropping onto the thick carpet pile. I was so sad to hear Izzy's tragic news. This was so devastating. I never expected this to happen. Izzy had enjoyed a healthy pregnancy, and there had been no outward signs that the baby might be in distress. I gulped as I tried to find the words to pacify this indignant man. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Rog. I really am. You must be dreadfully upset. I mean, I can't imagine what you're going through right now." "Upset? Is that all you can say? I must be upset? That's an understatement, woman. You're clueless, aren't you? Completely clueless. You killed my baby. You were the one that insisted that my wife had her baby at home in a birthing pool. This is all your fault." "Rog, please don't hurt me," I whimpered. "Can we not talk about this? I know you're upset, and I understand where you're coming from. As I was saying, I can't imagine what you must be going through. It's just so devastating, losing a baby. I mean, it's terrible. But lashing out at me, it's not going to help anyone. Let's talk about this calmly, shall we? Shall we sit down? I can make us a cup of tea. I'll put lots of sugar in your tea, shall I?
Talk about what, woman? Why is it women always want to talk? There is nothing to say as far as I'm concerned. It's all too late for that. The damage is done. You ruined my life. You killed my baby boy. I hope you're proud of yourself. Izzy is heartbroken.
I'm so sorry, Rog. Really I am, I said, my eyes widening, as one of his fists went slamming into my face, hitting me across my nose and my upper cheeks. It was excruciatingly painful, and I could tell that my nose had broken. Blood was pouring down my face, but that was the very least of my concerns. I have never encountered the anger I saw in Rog that night. I sensed that my life was in serious jeopardy, and was hanging precariously from a fine shoestring, and was so close to being snapped, and I had to make sure that that did not happen. I knew that I couldn't say anything to this man. There was no reasoning with him, as in his mind I was the one that killed his baby boy, because I had encouraged his wife to give birth to her baby in a birthing pool, and that wasn't true in itself, but the blame was obviously being levelled at me, and he wanted me to be accountable for what had happened to his wife. The blame was being unreasonably laid at my door. Rog wanted to avenge his baby's death by hurting or probably killing me. Rog could not be trusted. I knew he was capable of a great evil from the very first day I'd encountered him. By the sounds of things, if Izzy's baby was a stillborn, not even the hospitals would have been able to save the child. But I couldn't find the words to say this to Rog, as it would provoke his unquenchable rage to even more anger. He was looking for someone to blame for what had happened to his baby boy, and I would do very nicely, thank you very much. I didn't want to be like a matador in a ring, rigorously waving a red flag in front of a bull to make the animal even more incensed. Rog was bubbling with rage, and saying anything was like throwing gas onto an open fire and making it 1,000 zillion times worse. I was living on borrowed time, and it was running out. Rog was going to kill me tonight, and I knew this with every fibre of my being. Please, please, Rog, I begged him, don't hurt me. I'm so sorry for your loss, really I am. But your baby was stillborn. Even if it had been born in a hospital, I promise you they'd not have been able to save him. You see it in the wilds all the time. You know, deer giving birth to stillborns. It happens with horses and all kinds of animals and humans too. And there's nothing you can do to save the baby in that situation. Surely you must know that. This isn't your fault, it's not Izzy's fault, it's not my fault. It is what it is.
Shut up, you bitch. This is your fault. You killed my baby. Get that?
I could feel Roger's fist pounding into me. He wanted to make me suffer before he finally killed me. That was the idea, as he delivered to my body a multitude of very powerful blows, one after another. The pain was like nothing I've ever experienced on this earth. I was crumpled on the floor in a bedraggled, desperate heap, cowering before Rog like a frightened animal, burying my face and my head behind my hands to stop Rog from attacking me in my most vulnerable spots. My defensive gestures were completely futile. Finally he hit me so hard on the head that I completely blacked out. A while later I came round, as he was rolling me up in my carpet, but thankfully he did so loosely. I realized he must have thought I was dead. It was the most terrifying thing to have to endure, being rolled up in a carpet, completely suffocating. I felt as if I couldn't breathe. My only chance to stay alive was to pretend to be dead, and so I did just that, because I did not want him to deliver me one more final lethal blow. I could taste blood in my mouth, and my whole body was throbbing in agonizing pain. I'm glad to say that my moments of consciousness were brief, as I slipped into an unconscious oblivion, and that may have actually saved my life, as Rog really was convinced that I was deceased. Everything did go black for me, and after that I remember nothing, until I found myself caught up in this delirious, confused, disorientated state that was possibly as close to being in a coma as you can get. I mistakenly, falsely believed I was in a hospital, and had no immediate memory of what Rog had actually done to me. The last time I had felt as hopelessly incapacitated as this was when I was coming around from the anaesthetic following my wrist operation. Only this was 1,000 times worse, because I couldn't seem to break through the ambiguously foggy blur of my comatose state, even though I was fully aware of my surroundings, except I didn't know where I was. It began to dawn on me with a stunned revelation that I could not be in a hospital. Instead of smelling that strong, overpowering scent of antiseptic you commonly smell in a sterile environment like a hospital, on the contrary, I was smelling earthy smells, the smell of something fragrant that gave me the impression that I was in a garden of some kind. The smell reminded me of orange blossom. What was I doing out of doors? I could feel a cool breeze blowing against my skin, and it was oddly pleasant. That would never happen in a hospital, unless someone left a window wide open that allowed the outside in, which I seriously doubted. I heard no voices, but I was aware of a presence around me that swaddled me in reassurance. As strange as it sounds, I heard what I can only describe as a female voice saying in my head, "Have no fear of us. You're going to be fine. We're watching over you. You're in good hands." I was convinced that the voice was angelic, something outer-worldly and supernatural, as if God himself had been communicating with me, and the paradoxical experience brought me a huge measure of comfort, for I believed the voice telling me I was going to be fine, even though every part of me told me otherwise, must have been God himself. I became aware of gentle hands on me. Someone was putting water into my very dry, parched mouth, stroking my blood-soaked hair and pulling it away from my face. My cheeks were being dabbed with something that felt like a wet sponge. At first it caused an uncomfortable stinging sensation on my skin, which burned for a while, with a very fierce pain, and then thankfully that subsided. Finally, as I became more conscious in my rather groggy state, I could hear voices around me. 2 of them distinctly sounded female. They were rather high-pitched, and 2 of them sounded male. These voices boomed, with a deep, low resonance, the kind of voice you would pay quick attention to, because it was authoritative and powerful. If you were asking someone to play the part of God in a movie, then this is the voice you should recruit, because it would get your attention at once. I remember thinking how bizarre this experience was, as these strangers around me were speaking so fast, backwards and forwards, in a foreign language. I tried to think if I'd heard this language before from somewhere, but there was nothing remotely familiar about it. It was a strange language. It wasn't like French, German, Chinese, or even Dutch. If the truth be told, the language sounded ancient in its origins. Whoever these strange people were, they were discussing me at great length. Of that I was in no doubt. I had become the centre of their focus, and I sensed they genuinely cared about my well-being. A while later I could feel the temperature had dipped. I became conscious that I was shivering with cold. It was getting very cool. And then I felt something being thrown over my body that felt like a heavy blanket, only it smelt really manky, with an animal-like smell, as if I was lying under a dog blanket. It wasn't a very pleasing smell, but the blanket helped keep the cold at bay, and for that I was extremely grateful. When night arrived, even though I couldn't physically see it, I certainly felt it. I could hear the chirping sounds of the crickets and frogs, and that was when I became conspicuously aware that I was definitely out of doors somewhere. I could sense the crickets seemed mere inches away from me. There were more smells that became very conspicuous to me, and I could hear the crackling and spitting sounds of a fire, and feel the warmth from the flames, as well as the smell of wood being burnt. I'd always loved outdoor campfires, as growing up as a child I would sit around the fire pit with my grandparents, on an outdoor camping trip, eating s'mores and listening to my grandfather's ghost stories, which were always dreadful, because they did not scare at all, although I always pretended that I was scared to death by them, because it would be rude to make my grandfather think his stories were rather redundant. It definitely felt that I was on one of those nostalgic outdoor camping trips with my grandfather. The pungent smells of the great outdoors were oddly comforting. I wished to God I could wake up to get a greater perspective of my bearings, and who these kind people were that appeared to be watching over me. One thing for sure was they were not American. I still felt as if I was locked under some paradoxical coma, where you are aware of what's going on around you, but you simply cannot participate in it, which is incredibly frustrating. In the background I heard the smacking sounds of lips, chewing sounds, people talking while they ate. I heard shuffling movements, and then talking again. One of the people around me began to whistle a tune. It was very pretty. I remember thinking to myself that even my grandfather, who was an excellent whistler, had never been able to whistle that well. These people were watching over me. Whoever they were, I sensed they were different from normal folk. How did I get out here, I wondered, and who were these people? I tried to piece the enigmatic puzzle together, but I seemed to be suffering from an annoying amnesia, as far as the most recent events were concerned, so I couldn't figure out why I was out here with these strange people, what had happened to me, why they were taking care of me. All these were questions that I could not answer. Throughout what must have been an entire night, I was carefully attended to diligently, with water being dropped into my mouth, and the wounds on my body being cleaned. I was absolutely exhausted, extremely fatigued. My whole body ached. I would drift into long absences of unconsciousness, when I must have been sleeping for a long time. I would wake up to hear the drone of these foreign voices that became like white background noise to me. It was when the morning broke that I felt as if the sensation of being anaesthetized was finally drifting away. I began to flutter my eyes, and then slowly but surely my eyelids opened. The first thing I saw was the lofty trees with their long trunks towering above me, their outstretched sculptural branches covered with leafy foliage. I could see the sky was a pewter grey colour. Soft prisms of golden light were spreading across the horizon, staining the sky as the morning was being birthed. Slowly but surely I sat up with a start, very much aware of how much my body was throbbing all over. I could feel I had a banging headache. It was excruciatingly painful around the back of my eyes and the temple area. I heard a shuffle on my side, and promptly turned around to observe the shadowy, rather ambiguous figure, seated down on a fallen tree trunk. This creature, whatever it was, appeared to be eyeballing me. I looked up and our eyes met. To my astonishment, I was staring at a female Bigfoot. I was so shocked by this, because I'd never believed in cryptic creatures before, but now I almost certainly did, as this human-looking creature was no optical illusion. The Bigfoot, on seeing me wake up, began to whistle excitedly. She cried out something. "Kilatina! Kilatina! Kilatina!" She clapped her hands in jubilation, as if seeing me awake was the best thing that had ever happened to her. She began to jump up and down ebulliently, whistling and clapping her hands. That was when these forms, rather shapeless looking, that had been lying around me, that I thought were fallen logs, stretched out beside the dying embers of a campfire, suddenly burst into life, like the trees in The Lord of the Rings. It really was rather startling. I was surrounded by 4 powerful Bigfoot, whose inquiring, inquisitive, curious eyes were studying me with abject awe, as if I was the Christ raised from the dead. They whistled together, clapped, and stamped their feet with abject delight. I could sense they were over the moon to see that I had finally returned to the land of the living. Their enthusiasm was infectious. It made me smile. I had a grin on my face so wide it would have put a Cheshire cat to shame. I warmed to these Bigfoots at once, for their kindness to me was palpable. They were presenting me with berries, leaves, pieces of dead squirrel. I ate the berries. They were sweet and delicious, but I discreetly tucked the squirrel into the foliage so as not to cause offence. In a trice the morning light had broken through the trees without apology, so the Bigfoots were fully illuminated, and I could see them clearly. They were a family consisting of 1 girl and a boy, mother and father. The male Bigfoot was so gargantuan in size, there are no words to describe him to you. The girth of his body was like something I've never seen before. It was astonishing. It was like one of those majestic Californian redwood trees. To say he was splendid is an understatement. Everything about him demanded complete respect.
and when he spoke, even the birds paid swift attention to him, for they stopped their tuneful chorus. Indeed, the two adult Bigfoots were solidly built, ripped with muscle, and covered in long flowing dark hair, the colour of black coal, but with a dark blue undertone that I could see clearly in the morning light. I've never seen a colour quite like that. The lofty male could have been over 10 foot tall. The female may have been about 7.5 foot tall. The two younglings were between 5 to 6 feet. Their proportions were gangly and streamlined, unlike their parents, almost as if they had to fill out quite considerably. I observed the remnants of a wispy grey smoke rising from what was left of the fire in the fire pit. I also noticed the thing that had been covering me all night long to keep me warm was a bear pelt. No wonder it smelt so disgusting. The Bigfoots began to talk among each other excitedly. I knew they were discussing me.
Kilatila, hopolitana, sokolo shokosa.
Ah, minalikwa, tolopani kasanakwa, hilasina tulopona.
Ikila, ikolo sopoto, aki kwasanatu, opolikatila.
Ah, mi katalana, ho pishakisala, ho manitalakwa, idana solo. All of a sudden, the excited chatter subsided very suddenly when the male Bigfoot raised his hand to silence everybody, and then he spoke. It was as dramatic as turning off the radio. His voice boomed. I felt no fear. I instinctively knew that although these Bigfoots were the most intimidating, fearsome creatures I'd ever encountered, they were so human in every regard, and were obviously emotionally intelligent, and they had displayed their hospitality to me by offering me food and shelter. The one thing I remember clearly was how different their faces were. Their skins were rather leathery and grey. Their protruding foreheads were heavily wrinkled, and they had high cheekbones, flat noses, and deep-set hooded eyes. Their faces were remarkably expressive, their gestures dramatic. I observed as they used their overlong arms a great deal when they talked. They seemed to act out what they were saying with these gestures. When the male Bigfoot spoke, I have never heard such a powerful voice before. The most extraordinary thing happened. The words he spoke seemed to be translated in my mind, like some kind of advanced intelligence. I only understood what he was saying when he spoke directly to me. If he spoke to another Bigfoot, I would not be able to comprehend what he was saying. I was taken aback by this ability. Who were these creatures? Why did they have these extraordinary superpowers? I wish I knew the answer to those questions, but I still don't. Kamatilana hasagila sopo, hakila kwasina. We are glad to see you have finally woken up. We were worried that you would not. The bad man came here. He dug a big grave for you in the ground. He believed you were dead. We knew different. Hatinatolo bakikwasa. We observed your life force hanging outside your body, but you were still connected to the silver cord. We knew the man had hurt you. His dark, hateful energy rose out of his body like black smoke. It upset us greatly. We usually destroy black energy like that, but we chose to let this man be, for it is not our nature to kill your kind, unless we feel it has to be done. If we have been threatened in any way by your people, then we will not hesitate to kill. This man was going to bury you, but we chased him away. He was very afraid of us. We could not let him bury you alive. Om polinatila, ha makisakwana, ho bolitalasu, ha fanisha. Do you remember what happened to you? Or why this man brought you to this place? We could see he was no good. The male Bigfoot looked directly into my eyes, questioningly, and all 4 Bigfoots were now focusing on me, almost as if expecting me to give them some kind of explanation,
as to what had happened to me, but I couldn't. I shook my head, because for a brief moment my memory was so blank, like a piece of paper with no writing on it. But the Bigfoot's words drilled through me, rather like a jackhammer drill. Someone had been digging a grave for me. But who? What bad man were they talking about? Then suddenly, in the next explosive second, memories seemed to resurface in my head, and they were far from pretty. I could see Roger's furious face just steaming with indignation as he stormed violently into my apartment with the fiery incandescent rage of a herd of furious elephants that want to destroy and savagely kill everything in their path. The man claimed I'd killed his baby boy because it was a stillborn birth, and in that moment I had unequivocally known that I was living on borrowed time, as there was no negotiating with a man driven by his own insanity. When Izzy had given birth to a stillborn baby in her apartment next door to me, I had simply assumed that everything had gone swimmingly, as I had heard her pained cries when she had given birth, and the reassuring murmurs of the midwife. I had gone to bed that night with a contented, gleeful smile on my face, knowing that in the morning Izzy would give me her great news. The trouble was the news had not been good. The baby had been born dead. It does happen sometimes to women. I couldn't imagine what Izzy must have been going through. It must have been too dreadful for words. But I had been woken up in the middle of the night by what sounded like the axeman at my door. My instincts to grab the baseball bat that I kept under my bed had been right on the money. But when I saw Rog at the door, I foolishly put the bat down and let the man into my apartment. It was the most unwise decision on my part. I guess I had naively and rather ignorantly assumed that he was going to announce the good news to me, and maybe apologize to me for being so hard and unreasonable towards me about the birthing pool his wife had ordered. But the moment he entered my apartment, I realized I had invited into my apartment the devil and his minions. Of course I could fully comprehend the man's grief. That was completely understandable, as his baby was born dead. But there was no excuse to avenge me like this, and to lay the blame at my door. I realized he falsely assumed that if his wife had been safely cocooned in a hospital bed, with the nurses and doctors swooning around her, administering epidurals and helping with the delivery, that everything would have gone smoothly. Indeed, he wrongly perceived his baby might have survived. The truth, of course, is very different, for everyone who knows anything about stillborn births will know you cannot bring such a baby back to life when it's born dead. I suspect Rog was using me as his very convenient punching bag. I knew he blamed me for everything, given I was the one that suggested that Izzy could give birth in a birthing pool. He had promptly decided I was indirectly responsible for his son's death. But this time he'd gone too far. He had tried to avenge me by killing me. Indeed, he assumed I was dead when he'd wrapped me up in my carpet and brought me to God knows where. I'm amazed I didn't suffocate in that carpet, but he hadn't closed it tightly enough, and the pile was very thick. I realized he must have brought me here in the Range Rover he drove. I suspected he was probably familiar with the sequestered part of Washington State, and thought he could get away with murder. How wrong he was about that. It would seem, when Rog began digging a grave to dispose of my body, the Bigfoots had chased him off. He must have had a hell of a shock. I almost laughed at the very thought of him being chased off by these Bigfoots. So he hadn't been able to accomplish his insidious, depraved goal. The man really was a monster of the worst kind. The Bigfoots led me through the woodgrove to show me where Rog had dug my grave. I could see the rolled-up piece of carpet lying beneath some thorny briars. It was the one from my living room, and was beyond retrievable now. And there was his trowel lying by the open grave. He hadn't even succeeded in finishing it. "We chased him," said the male Bigfoot to me. "I don't know how to thank you," I said. "I've heard of your kind before, of course I had. I didn't believe the reports, you know. I thought they were just fabrications, people's imaginations, you know, that sort of thing." "Come, patana toi,
Hakilo tola mita, akila tolo basa, wolo. We don't particularly like your kind to know about us, said the male Bigfoot. It isn't in their best interests. Sometimes we reveal ourselves to your kind, and often we choose to help those people that need our help. But often they will not know that we have helped them, because we wipe their memories clean.
Please don't wipe my memory. I want to remember you.
Gelatila. We wouldn't dream of it.
I used to hear these terrible things about your kind, attacking people, causing dreadful harm. Of course, I never believed it, because I never believed you existed. So it's hard to believe in something like that if you don't believe in the existence of them. The Bigfoot seemed to chuckle at my words.
Kakilato, hakilanatuala, pasinatolo bilaki, hasha. Your kind can be evil too, can they not? I've seen it all too often. Like the man that tried to bury you alive. He may not be built like us, but he was evil to the very core. We could see that. We are not much different to your kind, although we have greater powers than you, and you lack our strength. But there are those among yourselves that are very bad, just as there are those among us that are bad. Everything in life has its intrinsic opposite, does it not? The good and the bad, the black and the white. So yes, there are groups among my people that are not good. But believe it or not, the vast majority of us are.
I believe that, I said, because you saved my life. How can I ever forget that? How can I ever thank you?
Ela tolopono, pasakira twalasi, ha shakisana. That is not necessary. But we need to get you back to safety, said the male Bigfoot. We will take you to a farmhouse. We know the family that lives there are good. Their energy is light. They will help you.
I'm glad to say the Bigfoot was absolutely right. He led me to the farmhouse, and the family there helped me. The police were called. They learnt about the gravesite, as I told them in detail everything that Rog had done to me. Of course, I didn't tell them how I'd escaped the insidious man's clutches, because I didn't want to tell them about the Bigfoot. It would seem DNA on the shovel and on my carpet belonged to Rog, affirming that he was indeed the one who dug the grave. But luckily he confessed to his crime in order to get a lighter sentence and to blame his behaviour on a moment of insanity, as he was so grieved by the stillbirth. I took careful note that he never mentioned that he was chased off by Bigfoots, and that was one thing the authorities couldn't understand, was why he had never buried me, why he hadn't completed digging the grave, and why he had left a deceased body that was not deceased in the woodgrove. Some answers were clearly leaving them very perplexed, but nobody was filling in the details for them, and I certainly wasn't going to. The authorities had very little compassion on him, of course, and he was charged and accused of attempted murder. Izzy got divorced from Rog while he remained in prison. She was grateful she'd never have to see his face again. "He's handsome," she said. "Of course he is. But isn't it amazing how ugly someone can become when you find out who they really are beneath all the good-looking layers?" Izzy was naturally devastated to lose her baby. Of course she was. But she was grateful she no longer had to live with Rog. So good came out of the bad, as it always does. So she had an opportunity to begin again and put the past behind her, which she very firmly did. I persuaded Izzy to move into my apartment for a while, and she did. The two of us grew very close. I got Mr. Bridges to give her a job at Centerfile, where she was promoted. But the moment those two met, there were sparks flying all over the place. By the look on Mr. Bridges' face, I knew he was smitten by Izzy. I remember he said to me, "Where did you find her?" I said, "She was my next-door neighbour. She desperately needs a job."
A job she is welcome to have.
Suffice to say, tongues wagged in the office for quite some time, as it was clear that Izzy and Mr. Bridges had become an item. The couple married, and I was the maid of honour at their wedding, and the godmother to their first baby, a little boy called Luke. Mr. Bridges, beneath the formidable exterior, is one of the kindest people you can ever hope to meet. And Izzy thinks the sun shines out of his backside. And do you know what? It probably does. We remain the best of friends today. I never did see the Bigfoots again, but I'm ever so grateful that they saved my life. And it proves one thing among the bad in this world. There is still good around, and I am very grateful for that. So there you are. That's my story. What an extraordinary story. Oh, my word. Can you imagine that? An unorthodox birthing process leads to a stillborn baby, leads to a furious husband determined to kill someone who suggests that the birthing pull is a good idea, putting the blame on that girl, and then it all ends up like this. What an extraordinary story.
Well, hello there. I hope you enjoyed the Omnibus edition. We've got many more coming our way for you to listen to. Sending you love wherever you are in the world, in North America, Canada, Kenya, wherever you may be. I send you lots and lots of love. Thank you for listening to my Omnibus, and I really do hope you enjoyed it, because that's the whole idea about it, is to give you some interesting stories to listen to. So until next time, goodbye and good night.